be going live. We don't have to, I think we just hang on here,
Sounds
get
good.
live, and we'll just talk and introduce and see what's going on. And yeah, it should be starting any second now.
Sounds like a
It's always
plan.
funny when it starts because then it's already started and we don't know it started. That's the nature of these live streams, but I think we're good. I think we are
Oh,
live.
I bet we are. It's always funny hopping on and seeing what you're talking about as we're talking and the live stream begins.
Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado legislative live stream here. Today is April 26th, 2026, and we got Michael Vance back. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Brandon, much better than last week. I appreciate you holding the fort down while I was gone and getting everything taken care of. There's a lot to go through, so it sucks to miss a week, but we are at the end. We are on the home stretch officially. So, um, with us being in the final 19 days, it's exciting to get back to what's going on down at the Colorado Legislature and finish up strong.
Oh my gosh, it is so crazy. It's been a wild week down at the state legislature. And to think we really only have, just about the 3 weeks left. Like you mentioned, the 19 days on the 120-day legislative session. So we're almost there, folks. We're 101 days through. But there's so many bills left. There's like so many crazy, ridiculous bills, whether you're talking about banning plasticware, the tax on video game bill, the new one. There's a new one of those I just found out about. There's all this craziness going on, folks. So really happy that people are jumping on, joining the live stream. Really appreciate you being back here, Michael. Yeah, we missed you last week. I gotta tell you, talking for 2 hours straight was a little bit of a challenge, but it was fun, and we had a great audience there. But now that you're back, we can definitely interact with audience a little bit more. But yeah, happy to see you. Happy to have you here. And we're almost there, folks. We're almost there. But it's so important because I think, Michael, with the calendar, right, with the time clock kind of ticking down here, we realize there's the legislature is not going to be able to get to every single bill, right? I mean, especially when some of these more controversial bills will have so much discussion around them where they're talking for 2 hours at a time if they're rule 14 or anything along those lines. So there's the clock is on our side. So folks, if you can create as much controversy as you can over these bad bills by showing up at committee hearings, emailing and calling the legislators, really get involved, get fired up, because some of the more controversial bills, we could see the Democrat majority just say, hey, listen, we don't have time for those. It's causing too much issues. There's all this craziness going on about it. Let's just let it die on the calendar and we'll forget about it. We saw that last year, folks. If you remember, last year in 2025, there was a concurrent resolution there to basically eliminate Tabor, and they never got to vote on it. They never got to vote on it. They made it out of committee. We spoke on that in committee. A lot of us did, and yeah, they never made it out of committee and never made it to the floor because they just ran out of time. There was so much controversy over it, and they knew it was going to be a big fight. And they're like, hey, just let it go because we ran out of time. So some of the stuff we're talking about, folks, there is some hope that it can be stopped. And I was updating the list today too of all the bills that have passed or failed. And I'm like, my goodness, there's been some really horrible bills that have failed. And that really gives me some sense of optimism to say not every bad bill is going to make it. You know what I mean? Sure, there's a lot of bad bills that did make it and we know are going to make it. But if we could stop one or two just through citizen activism, by having your voice, by standing up, by getting involved in the process, that is empowering folks. And the more people we have doing this, the more attention being paid to our state legislature, we can make even bigger impact. So we're doing good work. I really appreciate everybody who's getting involved. It's so great. I testified on a couple bills this last week and saw a lot of people I knew on the Zoom testifying, or people down in person. So it's great to see so much activity, so much controversy coming up about certain bad bills. And yeah, we're really making a difference. But yeah, any other thoughts on that, Michael?
No, I mean, right now is a fantastic time to pay attention. It's a very important time to pay attention because of, like you said, there's only so many days left in the legislative calendar. So that means they're going to try to still shove as much stuff through as humanly possible. That means, like you're saying, with last year's Tabor resolution, it failed. They didn't have time to pass it, but there's a lot of tricks that can be played. You can see super motions get pushed through during certain committees that might take a dead bill and revive it, and suddenly it goes from being on death's door to suddenly a bill that gets enacted to law. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen over this next few weeks that we need to be paying very careful attention to. So keep your eyes peeled. If you see something that we haven't been discussing or on social media, let us know because we need to let everybody know what's happening at the Capitol. For example, not last year, but the last 2 years previously, the last week of legislative session is when they introduced major legislation and shoved it down our throats before we even had the opportunity to vote on it or get our say or really even have the ability to um, parse through what was going on in the said bill. For example, Prop HH was shoved through in the last week of legislative calendar in 2024. Thankfully, we were able to kill that by a 20% margin down at the ballot box, but it's stuff like that to get shoved through, does not get the time to be properly stakeholdered, and then ends up being put on our laps anyway. So now is the time to pay attention is what I'm trying to is basically what I'm trying to say. There's a lot to go through today, so I'm happy to get into it if you are, Brandon.
Definitely. And I just want to give a shout out to, we got so many great members in the chat here. If you're joining us, please jump in the chat. We love to interact with you, have conversations with you. Please like, share, comment. Buenos dias, Mike Dickerson there. Fly Pilot Explorer says 19 days. How much damage can they do? Yep. Simone, Rubino, howdy. Real Wicked Witch of the West. Thank you for being here. Glad to hear not an actual witch. That's comforting there. You know, New Patriot, good to see you. Just Jimmy, as always. Hey, Nickerson, Nicker 57, Brian Flanagan. Oh my gosh, so many great people, so many friends in the chat. So great to see you all. Folks, we are in the home stretch, and I can tell you your voice makes a difference, and there's so much we can talk about tonight. So let's get into it, folks. Let's jump in and see where we're going. But hey, I see you're wearing a jersey there, Michael. Wonderful game for the Colorado Avalanche today, huh? That was pretty exciting.
That was fantastic. It was good to see the Avs sweep. They've had early first round exits the last 2 years in a row, so it's really exciting to see the Avs advance to the next round, and they can be rested and refreshed for the second round, and they're going to be facing the winner of Dallas and Minnesota, the second and third best teams for a majority of the season in the regular season this year in the National Hockey League. So they get to face the Avs, and the Avs were the best season all year, absolutely dominated. So it's going to be an exciting second round matchup. I cannot wait. I know we talk about politics a lot, but hockey is a very good way to take a break from all the stresses of what's going down at the Colorado legislature. And thankfully, we are best to live around the best sports city in the entire country. That's Denver, Colorado. I mean, from all the successes of all our teams, in fact, about 2 weeks ago, we saw DU Pioneers win the national championship in hockey. So very, very blessed to have the sports teams that we have in Colorado. Same time, me and my wife got to go see the first game of the Nuggets, and that's so far the only win in their series. So we're blessed with a lot of really good sports in Colorado. Let's just hope that we can transition that into better legislative practices down at the Gold Dome.
Awesome. Well said, Michael. Yes, Colorado is worth fighting for, folks. We have so many wonderful things in our states, whether it's our sports team, our beautiful natural outdoors areas, the great people, so many of the freedoms that we already enjoy. Of course, our taxpayers' Bill of Rights. There's so many reasons to fight for Colorado, folks, and we will win. We will be a free state, but it starts with paying attention. It starts with paying attention. It starts with showing up and knowing what's happening, folks, because you've seen it. We've seen it. You get online, you get on the media, and they paint their little picture of what's happening in our state government, right? You got the governor, you got a compliant, what I would say is left-leaning, Democrat-friendly news media, corporate news media here in Colorado that tells you how they want you to think, ultimately. So folks, I appreciate you joining us tonight. We're going to talk about some of the most important bills going through our state legislature this week, committee hearings where you can have a voice, you can testify, you can show up, you can reach out to committee members, which I definitely recommend you do, especially a couple days before the committee if you can. And then we're going to give you some updates on some of the biggest bills going through the state capitol this year. Maybe you've heard of some of these big important pieces of legislation and maybe haven't heard anything about them in a while. So we're going to give you those updates, folks. So 19 days left, folks. There are 682 bills, memorials, and resolutions introduced so far here in 2026. Absolutely insane. 100 legislators are expected to understand the implications and the details and the nuance and the unintended consequences between 682 different things. Yeah, it's impossible, folks. It's a mess. The government should not be going as fast as they are. They should slow things down and really only debate a couple things a year because there's no way the citizens can have the input we need, but we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best tonight, folks. So awesome. So every week we start off by talking about some of the biggest bills going through the Capitol. So if you can't stick around the whole time, at least you get some of the highlights. This is what we talked. Well, I talked about last week. Michael took the night off. But last week we saw some really important bills. I got to testify on several of them. Saw a lot of people from the chat testifying on them, so that was really cool to see. This last Monday, April 20th, we saw a really good bill, a couple resolutions actually for supporting the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, supporting Tabor. That was really a great resolution. Resolution 1008. It did fail, of course. The Democrat majority does not like Tabor, right? It's no surprise they want to repeal our Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, take away the ability for the voters to be required to get to consent to any tax increase, and of course, limiting the size of the government and how much revenue they're allowed to keep. That's one of the most important things about Tabor, and that's why we're as economically well off as we still are, believe it or not. So, of course, the Democrats killed 1008, unhappy about that. And that same committee was the person's rights related to their children. So, really, a great parental rights resolution that would have put in the state constitution. It would ask the voters, it would have been on the ballot this year, but the voters of Colorado would have had the opportunity to amend our state constitution to guarantee the rights of parents to raise their kids. And how important is that? How crazy is it that we even need to put that into law, that we even need to have those types of discussions? But that's where it is, folks. The Democrats didn't like it. The Democrats don't like the idea that you as a parent should have the ultimate authority over your children. That's just the reality of it, folks. And I know there's so much controversy at the national level about Democrats versus Republicans. But I got to tell you here, folks, there's a huge difference in Colorado. We see the Republicans standing up for our taxpayers' Bill of Rights. We see the Republicans standing up for our parental rights, and the Democrats on the opposite side of it. It's as clear as day down at the state legislature. Then this last Tuesday, we had a huge win, one of the biggest wins for victory we've seen this year, and that is House Bill 1250. Representative Ken DeGraff, one of the strongest pro-liberty voices in our state government, has been trying to reform civil asset forfeiture for years. This year, he worked with the Democrats because really, hey, they got the majority. If you're going to get something passed, you really have to get their approval on it. So they passed House Bill 1250 out of the House Judiciary Committee. Exciting stuff. Wonderful. One vote, one vote. And big thank you to Representative Scott Slaw, the only Republican to vote for it and getting it out of committee. So we're going to keep a close eye on that bill. Follow Free State Colorado on social media. Of course, follow Michael K. Vance on X as well to stay up to date on what's going on. We'll do our best to keep you updated. But huge win this last week, folks, and just really thankful for everybody that worked hard to get 1250 passed. I'm very thankful for Representative Ken DeGraff, really our strongest pro-liberty voice in the state legislature. And then, of course, we had, gosh, one of the most controversial bills. I testified on this one. This was horrible, folks. Age attestation on computing devices did pass out of committee. It did pass out of the House committee, barely, though. I got to tell you, barely. It barely made it, folks. All the Republicans voted against it. The Democrats mostly voted for it. Bob Marshall even voted against it. There's a chance to stop this bill. If there's enough controversy, if there's enough public outcry, why do we want to stop Senate Bill 51? Because it puts us on the path to digital ID. It creates a requirement where any operating system sold in Colorado, think your phone or your computer, your laptop that you buy, is going to require your age information. So I was saying the legislators who voted for Senate Bill 51 are basically saying, hey, we're going to mandate, we're going to send your birthday to big tech. And that's what it's going to be. Big tech's going to have your birthday. And if you want to use your phone or your computer, you're going to have to give up your birthday to these big tech companies. And then this is the first step, folks. We know a couple years down the road, they're going to come back and say, well, people have been lying. People have been making stuff up. So now let's have a digital ID requirement. It's this nationwide push we're seeing at the federal and state level across the entire country to move us towards this digital ID. We're fighting it here in Colorado, but we need your help, folks. There's still time. Email every single House representative in our state government. I'll post this on X at Free State Colorado when I get a chance, but email every single state rep, tell them to oppose Senate Bill 51. We do not want this age verification system coming. We want to push back on this, and I think there's a good opportunity. There's actually a real chance to stop this. The Democrats were very reluctant to vote for it because of the outcry, because of the issues associated with it. Michael, any thoughts on some of these updates from last week?
I was I've been watching Ken DeGraff push civil asset forfeiture reform for years and years and years, and I was really happy for him to get this push through because this has been one of the big topics he's really been advocating for, which is Fourth Amendment protections. I was disappointed to see 1237, which was a bill that was going to essentially ban the government from buying third-party private data. Uh, I was disappointed to see that one get killed this week, and there was some rather underhanded tactics that were put in place to make sure that that bill was killed. But I'm very happy that Ken DeGraff was able to um, to absolutely see this advance past the committee and actually into the House for reading, so we can see some real debate. Um, Very concerned about what's happening with Senate Bill 51. I agree with you completely. Let's see what we can do to really raise stink. If you know somebody, let's say you know some big social media influencer that cares about Fourth Amendment, cares about privacy rights, let them know about this bill. Let them know what's going on in Colorado and how if this passes in Colorado, it's going to spread like a virus to other states because they're going to say, hey, Colorado can do it, so can we. And that's why we need to kill this bill because it's going to hurt us as Coloradans, but it's going to spread at a nationwide rate where if we are going to end up seeing it's going to spread to the point where we're going to end up seeing, as you said, digital ID on a wide scale level. I know that some certain Republicans actually ran for president on this. One of them was Nikki Haley, for example. And if there was one person I could not stand on the Republican side, it was absolutely Nikki Haley. So this is something that we need to see die. If we can kill this in Colorado, that's better. But we need to protect our Fourth Amendment. We need to protect our privacy. We need our rights. We need to do everything we can because they are trying to strip our rights one little nickel, one little cut at a time. So please, let people know what's going on with our privacy rights, and we can absolutely make a difference in Colorado, and we can protect our privacy rights. So please call, email your legislators, or you email your representatives, and let them know what's going on. Let them know why the Fourth Amendment is critical and it's key to a free society. So um, I couldn't agree with you more, Brandon.
Definitely. And yes, we'll talk to about 1037 here shortly, but also a really important bill that we've been talking about for quite some time here. And we've had Senator Linda Zamora Wilson join us on the live stream in the past to discuss this. But Senate Bill 70, a great privacy bill. There's so many issues with all these cameras and the surveillance state that's being built around us. A lot of controversy around this, folks. It did Senate Bill 70 did make it out of committee, thankfully, and was laid over. So there's more time if you can email every senator as well. Please do. I know we're asking a lot, folks, but an email to every rep, an email to every senator. It's easy enough to do, and if this is the bare minimum for us to try and keep some of our privacy, fight for our rights, let's do it. You know, I've done it several times already here this last week, and I'm going to reach out to him again. But Senate Bill 70 to ban the government access historical location information database, basically to say, hey, if you want to start building a profile to go through these computer surveillance systems and find out every place I've been for the last month, you should probably get a warrant for that. You know, and there's so many exceptions carved out in the bill for active investigations, for emergencies, for all these other things. So it definitely gives the police more ability than maybe I would like to see to access all this information. It just put some basic guardrails up, really. It's really um, not as strong of a bill as I'd like, but nonetheless, law enforcement and the DAs are fighting this tooth and nail. So Senate Bill 70, the PEEPS Act, protecting everyone from excessive police surveillance. We're going to need more of that. And Senator Linda Zamora Wilson has quickly become one of the strongest advocates for our Fourth Amendment rights in the state Senate. She is definitely becoming the most pro-liberty senator we have, and she's doing a phenomenal job. So that's Senator Linda Zamora Wilson. Great bill. We'll keep you up to date on this one. Hopefully this one comes up here again soon. Now, Michael, as you brought up here, there was House Bill 1250. That was the civil licensure for reform bill, and it barely squeaked out of the House Judiciary Committee. But then, folks, and then in a shocking betrayal, we had 6 legislators, including 4 Republicans, including Minority Leader Jarvis Caldwell, decide to vote down House Bill 1037, the Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act. This was a great bill that would have required a warrant for the government to go buy mass collected data on us, to buy this huge data collection schemes that all these companies are doing now. We just want to say, hey, listen, no more circumventing the Fourth Amendment. You go ask for a judge to go buy all this data, to go through it all and build this around us. So we had what I said at the time, folks. We have an anti-liberty group of legislators who are voting against good legislation that would protect the property and the data of Coloradans. House Bill 1037, the Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act, failed because of the sinister 6 here, and that's Chad Clifford. I made up a little funny kind of meme here, the Colorado's Bootlicker Caucus. You know, there's all these different caucuses out there, but I said Chad Clifford should be the chair. Cecilia Espinoza, the vice chair. Those are the 2 Democrats. Then you had Jarvis Caldwell, the Republicans, oppose it conservative, small government guy, he was the deciding vote. He swapped out Scott Slaw, who's my state rep up here in Greeley in Weld County, because he was worried that Scott Slaw would vote for the bill. And he didn't want that. So he came in and silenced my district, swapped out the rep, put himself in there, and decided to vote on behalf of big government to not protect our Fourth Amendment rights. So that's Jarvis Caldwell, of course, Ava Flanell, who was not happy about being called out about this, who had a total breakdown on social media when she was challenged on her horrible vote on 1037. Absolutely shocking to see. Rebecca Kelty, who I love, Representative Kelty. She's awesome. We've had her on many times. I think she's just misguided on this. I'm willing to give her a little bit more grace because she did vote right last year on 1250, and just knowing her that way. But then Matt Soper, folks, Matt Soper has no excuses. He is the biggest advocate for big government there is. He tried to diminish our ability to get open records requests here in Colorado 2 years in a row. He's voting for all these new restrictions and regulations on the government. I've been tracking this guy for a long time. I'm really thankful he's out of the legislature this year. But Matt Soper, of course, is the guy who always will side with the government over the people. And that's a real concern, folks. And, if we want to become a free state, we got to hold bad politicians accountable, regardless of the party. Yeah, some of these people are Republicans. And I know it makes some people uncomfortable to criticize them. But if they're voting wrong, if they're voting against Representative DeGraff, who's trying his best to protect our Fourth Amendment rights and our privacy, and instead they're listening to the little DAs and law enforcement whispering in their ears saying, no, don't restrict our power. No, don't make us get a warrant. Don't make us follow the Fourth Amendment. Then they deserve to be called out for it. So I would say these are the members of Colorado's newest caucus, the Bootlicker Caucus out there, who are siding with big government to get our data and let law enforcement confiscate our property without due process. But the fight continues here, folks. Any thoughts on this, Michael?
I I think you've said it best. The only thing I want to add is we need to ask these people, are they for the Constitution or are they for law enforcement? Because they're the ones selling their vote as pro law enforcement while they are eroding the constitutional rights that we have as citizens of Colorado and the citizens of the United States. What they're doing is wrong. In my opinion, it's illegal. It's something that should be absolutely be stricken from the records because it is unconstitutional. So please let these legislators know that they are absolutely abdicating their oath that they took as representatives of our state when they became when they were elected to their positions and took their oath, because their oath not only requires them to follow the Constitution of Colorado, but the Constitution of the United States as well. So they have a duty to the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights. So we need to remind them that they do not have an oath to the law enforcement. Law enforcement's important. Law enforcement's who we're going to call when we have danger, if we have a stalker, for example. But here's the thing. They have to get a warrant. They have to follow the law just like we have to. We have to follow the Constitution. So there are certain things that we have to do as a free society to maintain a free society if we want to keep a free society. And one of those things that we have to do is follow the is respect the Fourth Amendment. So please let these, especially the Republicans, because I'll say this is the last thing I'll say about this. The Republicans love to talk about how they love and revere the Constitution. Well, this is absolutely a slap in the face to the Constitution of the United States. So make sure that they are very, very aware of their duty that they are obligated to hold.
Well said, sir. 100% couldn't agree more. And thank you, Nunu, for bringing this up in the chat there. Representative Lauren Boebert, Colorado's best congressperson, Lauren Boebert and Thomas Massey, I'd say America's best congressman, up there are introducing a very similar bill to restrict the government's ability to get our information through mass data collection and say, hey, listen, follow the Fourth Amendment, follow the Constitution, get a warrant. And so many of these, Matt Soper celebrated that online. Matt Soper posted on his Facebook page, I'm so proud of Boebert and Massey, wonderful what they're doing. And it's like he was one of the deciding votes to stop the same thing happening here in Colorado. It just shows you how these two-faced politicians will talk out both sides of their mouth, and they hope that they hear the good stuff is heard about them, but they hate being criticized. And once you criticize them, they're willing to engage in personal attacks and go crazy because they don't want to be challenged. They don't want the voters to know that maybe they're voting incorrectly against liberty, against freedom. So the Democrats expect to be called out, but the Republicans definitely do not like it. So There we go, folks. Interesting stuff, that's for sure. Now, right off the bat, here are some of the most important bills going through the state legislature this week. Just highlighting a few of them there. These are the committee hearing bills. So, folks, there's only two we're really talking about. We'll talk about more than this. Don't get me wrong. Stick around. We're going to go through the whole week here and tell you what's happening in our legislative committees. But I'd say these are some of the biggest. So, if you can't stick around, grab a screenshot. If you can testify on these bills in committee hearings, you can reach out to the committee members. These are the ones I would really say are the biggest call to action in committee this week. So this Tuesday, April 28th, Senate Bill 150, this is modernizing, of course, modernizing the Regional Transportation District, RTD. But the reality is, folks, this is an anti democracy bill. It takes away the vote of the people. It replaces elected people who are elected to the board by the voters, by the people themselves, the citizens of Colorado, and it replaces them with appointees, political appointees, because they don't like folks, our state government doesn't like that the people have a voice in deciding how RTD is run. Why? Because the government has these grand schemes. They want to do these crazy projects and they don't want the people to challenge them on it. It's horrible stuff. So if you can testify against Senate Bill 150, it did already pass out of the Senate, now is moving into the House. But folks, this deserves to be called out. This deserves a lot of controversy because this is totally an anti-democratic bill. And definitely read it. We'll talk a little bit more about it here as we get going. But then also this Thursday, April 30th, in the Senate Local Government Housing Committee, which is 1:30 p.m. in Senate Committee Room 357, is Senate Concurrent Resolution 001. This is awesome. Senator Rod Pelton has a great resolution. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's going anywhere, but it's important for us to have a voice. It's important for good pro-liberty Coloradans to show up, to speak out, and have our voices heard. The Democrats cannot unhear us, right? They can't unhear us. We have to have our voices. We have to go down there and plant those seeds. You know, you're not just talking to the legislators, folks. You're talking to everybody in that room. You're talking to everybody who's watching online. You're talking to the people of Colorado. And so you can have a voice. This is a great bill to restore local control of development. We'll get into more details here in a minute, but those are some of the big highlights this week, folks. Just wanted to bring those up to you right away in case you can't stick around the rest of the night. Any other thoughts on these, Michael, before we move on? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, not right now. I know we'll get to them later. And we've got a lot to get through.
Perfect. All right, folks. So on the floor, now I wanted to bring this up here, folks, because so many of the bills are not necessarily being heard in committee. They're being heard on the floor. We don't talk too much about these every week because it's past it's not at the point where you can testify on it. Don't get me wrong. You still might be able to in a future committee, but you can email every senator. You can email every House representative and tell them about these bills. So I just want to quickly go through these here. Senate Bill 70, ban government access to historical location information. We already touched on that. Folks, email every state senator. Tell them to support this good pro-liberty, pro-privacy bill. Senate Bill 135, this is the state public K through 12 education funding. I just did a video with Nash Herman from the Independence Institute, who's a policy analyst there, and we talked about this bill. This bill would take away our table refunds forever. It's a massive expansion of government that's going to take more money out of the private sector, the actual real economy of our state, and give it to government. Give it to these government NGOs and government little people here and there who are going to just take this money and are just going to use it for their nefarious purposes, all the while our lives get worse off because they're taking more and more of our money. So people, you can reach out to every state senator, tell them to oppose 135. Senate Bill 146, one of the most ridiculous bills of the year. This one's making headlines. It would say restricting single-use food serviceware distribution. It would say, hey, Taco Bell, hey, Santiago's, Chubby's, wherever you're going, you can't give out a plastic spoon. You can't give out a plastic fork and a napkin unless they explicitly ask for it or they explicitly agree to it. Totally unnecessary, totally ridiculous bill. This is the same people who got plastic bags made illegal here in Colorado, and they're trying it again now with plastic forks. Insanity. Please tell them to oppose that bill. It should be heard this week. There's no dates on these folks because it's going to happen sometime this week. And you'll see at the end when we're going through these bills, but there's no guarantee that they're going to discuss that bill tomorrow, right? It could be on Thursday. It could be on Friday. So go ahead and email them right away. Then over in the House, another bad bill, a lot of bad bills there, but this is on the House floor. The homicide criminal offenses. This is the debate that went on for 2 hours where the Democratic majority on this last Friday invoked Rule 14 to silence Republican voices and say we're only going to allow 2 hours worth of debate because we know how controversial this is and we really want to make sure that we get it pushed through without too much scrutiny. So this bill basically makes it harder for an individual to be charged with first-degree murder in Colorado. Believe it or not, as insane as that sounds, it says that, hey, listen, if you're going to be charged with first degree murder, there's a higher threshold. Otherwise it's just second degree. So it's like, what are we doing here, folks? Crime is a horrible thing. Senate Bill 43 is the firearm barrel regulation bill. Now, this bill has been on the calendar. I see people asking about it every day online. Shout out to you there. But people asking about what's happening with this bill. What's happening with this bill? It's been stalled out on the Senate floor or on the House floor, excuse me. So reach out to the House members. Let's make some noise on it. I don't know that we're going to stop it, but I think any more opposition we can raise to it potentially is a good thing. Senate concurrent resolution, areas of local preemption. That was that just got copied over on accident there. Senate Bill 51, the age attestation on computing devices. Reach out to every state senator, every state rep, folks. And then House Bill 1206, improved funding to support development. This is a horrible bill that's going to allow local housing authorities to put new tax increasing ballot measures to the people to fund these nonprofit affordable housing that your local government has no control over. It's the sister bill to House Bill 1001, the governor's signature high density housing bill to override local control. This is the funding mechanism they're pushing through. So these are all going through on the House and the Senate floor this week, folks. So make some noise, get them out there, and let's talk to everybody about it. Any thoughts here, Michael, before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I want to point out with Senate Bill 135 is Senate Bill 135, they're basically going to take your TABOR refunds and they're just going to give them to public education. It's all a big grift. While at the same time, they claim that we don't get TABOR refunds anymore. So I don't understand the purpose of the bill if we don't even get TABOR refunds anymore, uh, unless they just want to make sure we don't ever get our money back. And that's what I think the real reason for this bill is. Uh, we're seeing this. We've been talking about this one for a while. 135 is going to be heard on third reading this week, but that means, like we're talking about, that means they've only got about 2 weeks after this passes, if it does pass, to get through the House. So that means they're going to need a lot of time to discuss, get this stakeholdered, and then push to committee, and then have enough time to debate this bill on the floor. There's not much time left. This bill might be kind of dead in the water as well, unless they find a way to push this thing through as well. One other thing to remember is the Democrats love to use Rule 14 and Rule 16 on especially the Republicans, because they just want to shove everything through. So they might end up trying to force that bill down our throats um, via Rule 14 and Rule 14 and Rule 16 as well. So that's one thing I want to point out to you guys is there's a chance that we can kill this thing. All hope is not lost, especially because we heard this bill in committee a while back, and we're finally seeing this get advanced to the third reading this week.
Definitely, folks, have a voice, do what you can. And at the very least, these senators, these representatives can't go down there and say, well, nobody told me they were opposed to this bill, because you'll hear that. I guarantee you'll hear that. They'll say, nobody emailed me. Nobody told me this was a bad bill. None of my constituents told me anything about this. So I just voted for it. And it's like, don't let them have that excuse at the very, very least, right? So, folks, we're going to talk about some of the bills of the week. So, these are the bills being heard in committee hearings where you really have that opportunity to reach out to committee members. Committees are really the best place to stop some of these bad bills, and it's also the best place to support good pro liberty legislation. We have champions down there like Rep. DeGraff, like Representative Brandy Bradley, Scott Bonham, Stephanie Luck, Max Brooks, Linda Zamora Wilson on the Senate side, as Mark Baisley, and to show up and speak in favor of their bills, to show them that the community of Colorado, of free thinking, liberty minded individuals, support the good work they're trying to accomplish. It does mean something. It means a lot. They're down there. Our pro liberty Republicans are a minority, of course, in the legislature totally. They're also a minority in their own party. And that's the reality of it, folks. Our pro liberty Republicans are a minority in their own party. They need the support of the people of Colorado, support their campaigns, support their legislation. Do everything you can. So, folks, let's talk about some of the bills of the week where you can speak up, and please email and call the committee members. So first off, we're going to talk about Monday in the House Finance Committee here, folks. So the legislative website, folks, this is really your best place to go. leg.colorado.gov. You can click up here at the top where it says schedule, and you'll see a schedule for the whole week. It's awesome. It's a great resource. If you click listen, folks, during the week, you can actually listen. They're live streaming the committee hearings now. If you sign up to testify, you'll get a Zoom link, and that's under committees. Click public testimony options. That's how easy it is, folks. Find the bill you want to testify on. You can sort it or filter it by committee, by who the sponsor is. You can do a search. You can sort it. You can do different things here to find that bill and sign up to speak. They'll email you the Zoom link. You, of course, do it in person if you can. That's always preferred. But it's that easy, folks. It's that easy to have a voice in our state government. Just leg.colorado.gov, committees, public testimony options. Schedule. You can type in bill numbers. There's so many good avenues here for you to have a voice and be informed. So in the House Finance Committee, this is Monday, April 27th. It's at 1:30 p.m., so it's after the House meets as a whole. House Committee Room 112, the first floor of the state capitol. And this is a bill we've talked about a couple times, folks, so we probably won't spend a lot of time on it. But just to bring it up again, it finally got out of the Senate. This bill's been going around like for a long time. It's stuck around longer than a bad cold. But Senate Bill 42, Revenue Classification for the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. So basically, Tabor, anytime you see Section 20, Article X, Article 10 of the state constitution, you know that's Tabor. Well, these legislators think that some of the revenue that Tabor applies to shouldn't be applied. So they're really talking about, and you don't get me wrong, maybe they have a point on some of this, trying to be as fair as possible here. But collections for another government, damage awards, these types of things, they're trying to clarify to say, okay, well, that really doesn't apply to Tabor, this and that. But really, ultimately, of course, we're opposed to this on a fundamental level of saying, hey, listen, you want to have more revenue that the state government's collecting not be subject to Tabor, our Taxpayers' Bill of Rights revenue limitations. And that's not right, folks. Our state government has grown so much. There's so much more money than they have than ever before. This money that they collect should be under our Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. There should be an apostrophe there because it's a singular possessive plural on there or whatever, which means that it belongs to every single one of us. The Bill of Rights in Tabor belongs to every single taxpayer. There should be an apostrophe here if the people who ran the website did their job right. So there you go, folks. Just wanted to bring this one up. You can testify and you can listen to it. Of course, it's been through the entire Senate side. I mean, we're talking since January 27th, this bill was introduced and is now finally making it over to the House. But I'd say speak up. Let your voice be heard on this one. What do you think, Michael?
I think that we have a shot on this one as well. I don't think we as good of a shot of knocking this bill down as we do with 135, but I definitely think we have a shot. Tabor is very popular among Coloradans. You're facing an affordability crisis in Colorado, and with an election coming up this November, I think that there's going to be a lot of issues. Um, yeah, you can see here. I appreciate that you're pulling up the fiscal note on here because you can see right here, they're just going to rip our Tabor refunds away from us. That's all they're planning on doing. So um, I think that this is a mistake for them to run. I think it's a mistake for them to attack Tabor. And I'm really hoping that we can get this bill killed because we don't need to attack Tabor. I mean, we have we the we have plenty of money in our state budget. The state budget was at 29 billion when Polis took office, and now we're sitting at I believe correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Brandon, but I think the budget from this year was dropped down from somewhere in the low 50s to about $46 billion this year in the current long bill that was passed a couple weeks ago. So I don't necessarily think that we don't have an issue with revenue. We have an issue with spending in this state. So this is a bill that I definitely would love to see get killed because we need to protect Tabor as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, and I get it. I get their point. They say, hey, listen, if this is money that's collected from fines and penalties for certain traffic, vehicle, and license violations, including DUIs, this money goes to the Highway Users Tax Fund. It doesn't necessarily need to be subject to Tabor because it's not a tax. It's a fine or a penalty for somebody who committed a crime. So why is that under Tabor? So I can understand that mindset, except for the fact that so much of what the law enforcement does with traffic is all about revenue collection, right? I don't know about anybody else, but we're seeing all these new speed cameras pop up across the state of Colorado. We're seeing them on I-25. We're seeing them in local communities everywhere. And it just seems like the revenue collection piece is so much of what they're doing here. So it's like they're just finding an exemption to collect more and more revenue and then say, yeah, let's not have that apply to Tabor. Let's put it into this other fund that we're going to use for all this other stuff. So don't get me wrong, it's not the most egregious bill possible, but as you pointed out, Michael, it's 63 million, $64 million a year less. That's under our Tabor refund limit or our Tabor, limit. So the government's going to be able to collect $63 million more a year. That's not subject to our Tabor refund cap of how much the government can spend. So I think, hey, listen, the spirit of Tabor is that any revenue the government's collecting, in my mind, and Tabor does exclude some damage awards, some collections for another government. This bill's just trying to clarify that. So these people would say it's within the spirit of Tabor, but at the same time, like you said, Michael, all these attacks on Tabor, everything they're trying to do to nickel and dime us to death, it needs to be opposed. We need to speak out on it, and we need to make our voices heard. So I think Senate Bill 42 is a bad bill, and I hope people reach out to the committee members on this one, or maybe show up and testify. So yeah. Another one here, folks. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I should add this as one of the worst of the week. So we saw a similar bill being proposed earlier this year. They did postpone that bill indefinitely. And I think part of the reason is because they knew this bill was coming. So this is pretty new. Look at this number, 1418. 1418. I'm going to share this in the chat here so you can see it there. Yes, thank you for everybody giving the thumbs up and the likes. So 1418 here. And folks, a good little tip is you can look at this description. Look at this bill summary. Like, it's crazy how long it is. And we're supposed to know as individuals, as citizens, and then our state legislators are supposed to know. They don't know anything about this, right? So look how much state revenue they're going to bring in. $22 million a year, $23 million a year, basically, is what they're expecting to bring in every year from this bill. So that's more money that our state government's going to take out of the actual economy. So check this out. This is absolutely horrible, folks. Beginning January 1st, 2027, the bill requires that online gaming companies impose a 5% fee on any in-game add-on transactions to be remitted to the Department of Revenue. Revenue from this mental youth health services access fee. It's a fee. They're not calling it a tax. We know it's a tax. Why? How is this a fee? What service are you providing for me to do online gaming that I have to charge a fee for? It's insane. This fee money is going to go to Youth Mental Health Services Access Enterprise Fund to be used by the Youth Mental Health Service Access Enterprise. And guess what? Guess where that money is going to go? It's going to go to NGOs. It's going to go to nonprofits. It's going to go to these little places that are going to supposedly help kids with mental health issues, and everybody's going to be paying for it, and people are going to get rich off it. I can almost guarantee you that's what's going to happen. So starting October 1st, 2027, the enterprise may adjust the fee amount to equal the costs of services provided by the enterprise. So it's basically an unlimited fee. It just starts at this 5%. Crazy, folks. And here's what they're going to spend the money on: a grant program, this team program, this services program. It's all just going to go. It's going to be grift. What a great opportunity to grift here. But nonetheless, folks, let's scroll down through all of this and all their little empty promises here. But the reality is that we're talking about $11 million in half a year. Nearly $23 million a year they're going to tax and fee people using video games. So this is really going after kids. The fiscal notes are great because they have some of this background. The fiscal note assumes a 5% fee rate for all fiscal years. U.S. video game sales are estimated to have totaled $59 billion in 2024. Based on market research, the fiscal note assumes that 44% or $26 billion of video game sales are add-on transactions. In line with the state's portion of the U.S. population, the fiscal note assumes that 1.8% or $455 million of these sales occur in Colorado and become subject to the tax in this bill. Not a fee, it's a tax. I mean, that's insane, folks. If people are playing video games where they're spending nearly $500 million on these add-on transactions, and our greedy politicians want some of that money. They want to tax us. This is totally wrong. This is absolutely insane. And there's no reason why this should even be existing here. And then check this out. Of course, because it's a fee through an enterprise, it's Tabor exempt. Absolutely insane, absolutely crazy that they're doing this, raising the taxes, not including it to Tabor, and just basically trying to make everybody who uses a video game in Colorado pay more money. And how are they going to know? How are they going to know they're in Colorado if somebody's using a VPN or I mean, it's insane. How are these video game companies supposed to know all of this? And so now they're going to know where your location is. They want to know your age is. They're going to know where your location is. And then they're going to be charging you extra because of that. That's absolutely insane. Horrible bill, folks. Please speak this Monday in the House Finance Committee at 1:30 p.m. Reach out to the House Finance members. Tell them to oppose this. This is absolutely crazy. What do you think, Michael?
They, for whatever reason, the Colorado Democrats seem to not really care about parental rights. And then they use then they believe that at the end of the day, kids are not they do not belong to the parent, but they belong to the state, and therefore they're subjects of the state. So they turn around and blame the parent for certain things that your kid might do on social media, and then want to take action and use your kid's actions as an excuse, which at the end of the day are your responsibility. Your kids are your responsibility. That you have the right to raise your children the best that you see fit. And if they do something that is wrong or messed up, it's your obligation, it's your right, it's your responsibility to handle whatever issue comes up because of what's going on with your kids. Because at the end of the day, they're your kids to raise, not the state's. So the parents, so the state will turn around and say, well, we're going to take corrective actions because we see the kids as ours, not yours. And this is how this is the excuse we're going to use to raise more money. This is all a massive grift, and they can get around it just like with what Brandon said. They turn this fee into a fee and not a tax because that's the way they're going to get around Tabor, because enterprises are not subject to Section 20 of the Colorado Constitution. So very, very frustrating that they're using kids as an excuse to grift off of Coloradans. And this is another, and they believe that they are going to quote unquote correct kids' behaviors by doing this. Kids don't care about that. Kids want to play their games. Kids, that's all the kids want to do. They want to play their games. And if you're gonna punish kids, especially if they use their allowance money on whatever they want to do in their, let's say for example Roblox, they want to go on, they want to use their allowance money on Roblox, and they want to buy a fancy skin, or they want to buy a special weapon or a tool for a game that they're playing with their Robux. Now that money is going to have to get eaten into by the state government because the state government wants to charge a special fee. So I find it absolutely ridiculous. This is in my opinion, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and a big overcorrection. It's a big overstep by the state of Colorado.
Well, and this bill's so ridiculous because it's like they talk about social media and then they talk about online gaming as if it's entirely the same thing. Don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of overlap there, but not that much. But they're like, yeah, these self-righteous legislators think they're going to right all the wrongs that young people are experiencing online because they're using social media, they're playing video games, and so let's charge them a fee to take care of all their mental health issues. It's like, folks, maybe it's our state government causing the mental health issues. I know I get a headache from our state government here, instead of thinking they're going to somehow solve it. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's a tax disguised as a fee in order to charge on add-on transactions to steal 20 tens of millions of dollars every single year out of our economy and fund their little NGO grift. So Yara Zokai, of course, the card-carrying Democratic Socialist of America up here, absolute disgrace. Sean Camacho, he hates Tabor to the core. He tried to repeal it last year. Judy Amabile from Boulder, as little freedom as you can get. That's her mentality. And then Dylan Roberts, who sometimes can be reasonable, but no, he's really not. Stupid. And these legislators are going to be in their committee, self-righteous, talking about how wonderful they are to do this. But bad bill, Monday, April 27th in the House Finance Committee. Bad stuff, folks. Please reach out to the House Finance members. If you go online, I shared the link in the chat. You can click on there. You can click in and get bill information. You can watch the live stream. You can go over here to committees. There it is, House Finance right here. Click on it, and you can get, if you click on their names, you'll get their email. So you can click on this, get their email every single one of them, call their office, tell them that they should vote no on this bill. And if you can do it before the committee starts, that's great. And then also testify in committee as well. So there you go, folks. House Finance, Monday, April 27th, 1:30 p.m. Absolutely ridiculous, folks. Don't let these politicians get away with lying to you and telling you they're solving problems. When all they're really doing is robbing us blind. So also on Monday, folks, on the House State Affairs Committee, Monday, April 27th, 1:30 p.m., House Committee Room 107. So these are happening at the same time here, folks, but there's Senate Bill 147, lobbyist regulation. Now, this bill has been amended so much Our friends over at RMGO really alerted us to this because the idea was what they consider a lobbyist is that just a group of citizens getting together to go talk to their legislators. And this bill originally, you can see all the strike throughs. So the strike throughs here are things that got amended out of this bill. So thankfully, this bill was amended down pretty good because this bill was going to basically say you got to have some sort of registration system for people who want to go down and talk to legislators if they're part of this quote unquote advocacy day. Like, say you get a group of of individuals together around a common interest, then you got to get registered and stuff. So stupid. Such an infringement on our ability to petition the government, to have conversations with them. So they did change this here. So, it's not as bad, don't get me wrong, but just really quickly here, it says currently each principal department may designate one person who is responsible for lobbying a state official or employee on behalf of the department. That's the legislative liaison, so that's not a bad thing. The bill provides that the judicial department may also have one legislative liaison for each independent agency in the judiciary department. So this is really about lobbying within the state government to the legislature. That's fine. They can regulate that how they want. In addition to annually registering with the Secretary of State, a legislative liaison, judicial lobbyist, or a governor's lobbyist must file a monthly disclosure statement with the Secretary of State. Okay, I like that. I like that idea. The bill provides that a legislative liaison, judicial lobbyist, or a governor's lobbyist must indicate on the disclosure statement that a bill number of any legislation for which they've lobbied or will lobby and their position on the legislation. Okay, so I'm okay with this. This is some transparency. This is maybe limiting the ability of the executive branch to lobby the legislature, or at least providing more transparency around it. This bill also prohibits a statewide elected official or member of the General Assembly from being a legislative liaison or governor's lobbyist for at least 2 years. And that's really the rule, 2 years. So actually, this is an example of a bill that I think was really bad and it got amended. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes there's more in the bill than what the bill summary says. I'd really have to read it. But this bill got amended and they took out a lot of the bad stuff. And really, that's thanks to RMGO, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, because there was a lot of Republicans on this bill. And then when you actually read the text of it, they say, my goodness, I don't want to be on this bill anymore. And there was enough of an outcry that they were able to amend it. So maybe this one's not as big of a deal as the others, but I still wanted to bring it up. I still thought it was worth talking about. And you can read all the amendments. Look at all those amendments there. But yeah, what do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for the work that guys like Catching did, friend of the show. We I'm really happy to see that he was able to go down there and speak with a lot of these people, show them how destructive this was going to be to people down at the Gold Dome, particularly when it comes to our ability to advocate for our rights. People like Keshin are very important because it's difficult to get down there. There's 120 days in the legislative calendar, and we all have to work full-time jobs. My job has changed since the beginning of the legislative session, and it's not necessarily easy for me to get down to the Capitol or even remote in via Zoom. So uh, I was very concerned about how far that bill was going to go. Were they going to start considering everybody who even testifies almost like a lobbyist if they were going to take this bill to the extreme so I'm happy to see that this bill got really cut through and it's more about it's about government accountability now. So thank God for that.
Yeah, I'm still concerned about what they mean by what a volunteer lobbyist is. They don't really define that as very much. And here to say that if you're a volunteer lobbyist, you have to register with the General Assembly in accordance with the rules as if you're a paid lobbyist, I guess, or at least register that you're not being paid. But what does that even mean? What is a
I
volunteer lobbyist? So, there's some
so
concerns there. Is how necessary is this bill? I don't know. But yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I did a little bit of poking and prodding, put this bill into AI, and one of the things they did say about that was it's somebody who's not paid. Essentially, it's somebody who's not paid versus somebody who is like catching an RMGO. RMGO, they're a professional organization versus a group of individuals who just go down to the Capitol and lobby on behalf of an organization or a group. So that's what the AI was pointing out to be. Now, AI can hallucinate and AI can be wrong, but that's one of the things that made me feel a little bit better is understanding that it seems like they're trying to call out a professional and paid lobbyists. And those people already registered with the state government. And as you and I know, and the folks at home, I mean, they've seen it where we've gone on to the state's website, the Secretary of State's website, and you could go through the bills and see how what individual lobbyists position is on an individual bill by doing a bill page search. So, um, I'm not as concerned about what this would be. I mean, at the end of the day, there could be some stuff that I'm not catching. With the amount of bills that have been introduced, it's difficult to have an expert level opinion on every single bill. But especially with this one changing as much as it did, because I was very, very concerned about this one at first.
Yeah, good points all around. Appreciate you doing the deep dive on this one. I did share in the chat here on YouTube, where people can the lobbyist registration for the Secretary of State's website. Uh, so you can look up by bill number there, folks, and you can see all the people who've signed up to lobby in support of this bill or any bill, lobby support or oppose any bill. So that's a great link to have. It's a great resource to have because sometimes you want to say, okay, I don't know, this bill seems interesting to me, but who's supporting it? Like, who are the organizations or companies or groups out there that are wanting to get this bill passed and who's opposing it? So, like Senate Bill 51, the age attestation bill, where it's going to create, age verification systems to use a computer, basically, to simplify it. Google lobbied in support of that bill. TikTok lobbied in support of that bill. So very interesting to see these big tech companies lobbying in support of it. So gives you the rest of the story there for sure. So appreciate the context there. Interesting stuff. So this one, folks, this one it was in the headlines this last week. This is a new bill, House Bill 1422, security measures for certain government entities. Chad Clifford, James Coleman, and Lisa Frizzell. Lisa Frizzell is one of those Republicans in the state Senate who just so happens to be on the wrong side of a lot of bills. No, I get it. I get it. These legislators are get threats and they get people angry at them. I don't like that. Nobody likes that. But at the same time, this bill is giving them all these different protections now, which is going to decrease transparency. And that is my serious concern about this bill. So this bill creates an let's go through it real quick. It creates an administrator of legislative safety for the General Assembly. Okay, that's fine. They could have somebody who's looking at that. It authorizes the Executive Committee of the Legislative Council to appoint administrator of legislative safety to serve as a primary point of contact for members of the General Assembly, employees of the General Assembly, and other individuals specified by the Executive Committee on all matters relating to the personal safety and security and to coordinate security. Don't mind any of that, right? If there's crazy people, stalkers, or whatever out there, it's good to have maybe a single point of contact for how you deal with that. So none of that seems really bad here that way. But as we continue on here, they receive the complaints. That's fine. In fulfilling the duties, the administrator of the legislative safety shall coordinate with the Colorado State Patrol, because Colorado State Patrol is who's in charge of security at the state capitol. May coordinate with local law enforcement agencies, with the sergeants of arms. Okay, good stuff. Now, as the bill continues on here, sections 2 and 3 change the title of a chief security officer, sergeant of arms. That's fine. No big deal there. They appoint them, no problem there. Specifies that the administrator of the legislative safety is a peace officer whose authority includes enforcing all laws of the state and may be certified by the post board. Okay, so that's another cop down there. Current law requires the State Patrol to provide protection for members of the General Assembly when they are present at the Capitol complex and under certain circumstances when they attend functions held elsewhere in the state. Section 6 includes other covered individuals in the state's patrol protection when they are present in the Capitol complex. And Section 6 also clarifies that the state patrol's jurisdiction includes law enforcement services in the Capitol complex. Okay, that's all good stuff here. Current law grants the city and county of Denver jurisdiction to enforce the laws of the state for the security of the people and property in Colorado. Section 7 clarifies that this authority is in addition to the jurisdiction of the state patrol. Okay, no problem there. State patrol's jurisdiction over the governor's mansion. Fine. And then sections 8 through 10. So here's what's interesting here, folks. So basically, it gives you some background. All candidate committees, so that's every legislator running for office, any candidate, right? Political committee, small donor committee, and political parties are currently required to register with the Secretary of State or municipal clerk as applicable before accepting or making any campaign contributions. Okay. Registration requires the submission of a statement listing, among other things, a street address for the principal place of operations of the committee or party. Section 8 specifies that the address may be a street or mailing address. Currently, the Secretary is required to make all candidate disclosure statements filed with the Secretary available to the public on the Secretary's website. Section 9 repeals this requirement. So, folks, we've had issues before. If you were a Tracy Barnett up in Boulder who did not live in the district, who was lying and actually got charged with a crime and had to resign in disgrace of our state legislature, she lied about where she was living. Well, it was because citizens could look up her paperwork and say she says she's living there, but clearly no, she's not living there, right? So this is removing that ability for us to know where, if these legislators, I think we should kind of have an idea of where they live ultimately, folks. Who are we leaving this up to, right? Who watches the watchman here? Current law requires specified elected and appointed state officials to file a financial disclosure statement with the secretary that includes, among other things, the legal description of the interest in real property with a market value that exceeds $5,000. Section 10 eliminates the requirement to include a legal description of the property. So we're going to have less transparency about what property they own. Maybe they own some property that a business is on that they're voting on. I think that's important for us to know. Section 10 also requires the secretary to make financial disclosure statements available to any person upon request rather than the secretary's website. So they're going to take away financial disclosure statements on the website, and now you have to request them through the secretary's site. Well, that's going to make it harder to get. Of course, there's probably going to be a cost involved, and there's less transparency overall. So that's ultimately, folks, the biggest concern I have. And I get it. I get it. When you run for office and your name's online, like it can be scary. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I don't know that this is the right way to do it. It's just to take this information off the website. Now, there's more things in here, folks. We could go through. And Michael, if you have any other information about the rest of it, but that was really my main concerns here. Is really these, the transparency issue. So one last thing here. Personal information on the internet. Current law allows specified individuals defined as protected persons to request that state or local government officials remove their personal information from records that are available on the internet. Under existing law, it is unlawful to post a protected person's personal information on the internet in certain circumstances. In addition to other modifications of this law, Section 17 adds judicial employees, elected officials, and staff of elected officials to the definition of protected person. So you won't be able to post anybody's personal information online, which could potentially, I think, lead to a First Amendment issue. And don't get me wrong, I don't like the idea of people posting people's addresses or doxing them. I don't like that at all. But nonetheless, where's that line drawn? And I really have concerns about this. Section 17 also establishes civil remedies for a protected person recoverable from a person who is not a state or local government official and who has published a protected person's personal information if the person does not remove the personal information upon request. So there's a lot here, folks. These bills are all supposed to be single subject. It seems like they're doing a lot more than they should. But what are your thoughts here, Michael?
I agree with you, privacy concerns. And then uh, I'm also concerned with what Section 10 does and how it could possibly lead to election manipulation. You mentioned that one representative who recently had to resign a few years ago. Uh, if I remember correctly, doesn't Jackie Phillips have some similar issues going on with her address and where she actually lives versus the um, the district that she represents? Uh, I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty
No,
sure it
you're
was
right.
Jackie
You're right.
Phillips. So
Yeah,
who's
Jackie Phillips resigned from the Thornton City Council because of all the allegations that she didn't live in Thornton anymore. Now so she resigned from the city council. Now she's serving in the state government representing Thornton. So if she resigned from the city government because of that, and so there's some questions. Does she even live in the district? And so how are we going to know as individuals? You know what I mean? So yeah, sorry to interrupt you there.
No, you're absolutely correct. That's what uh, I could see this as a way to kind of protect Jackie Phillips and other representatives who are playing games with election law. In Colorado, if you need to live in a district to represent that district. In fact, it's different than the congressional district. In a congressional district, if I wanted to run, in fact, I did run for CD5 in 2024, and I live in the Denver metro area. I knew I wasn't going to win. It was just a thing that somebody asked me to do, and so I went ahead and ran. Just basically to be a line holder, and you can't do that here in the state level. If you are living in a district, that's the only district that you can run for. So it's a big difference. I mean, so there's a big difference in election law between what you can and can't do depending when it comes to your residence in federal elections versus state elections. So if she is violating state law, that needs to be investigated. So it's very important that how do I want to say this? It's very important that we uphold our election laws in Colorado, because what's going to stop anybody from saying they live absolutely anywhere? What's going to stop somebody from eventually living out of state? They could say their mailing address is, they could have a mailing address in their district at a PO box, have somebody check it for them, and then they could technically live out of state, and that would be an absolute disaster. That would be a huge violation of the spirit of that law. So I'm very So I want to make sure that we are upholding election law, making sure that people are representatives of the district and that they actually live from that district, they understand that district. So I I I think that this bill does way too much and we should oppose it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, but here's what it is, folks. Personal information means the home address, home telephone number, personal mobile telephone number, pager number, personal email address, social security, driver's license number, federal tax ID, bank account, credit card, or a personal photograph of the participant in the address confidentiality program or protected person. So you can't even post a personal photograph of them anymore. Directions to the home or of the participant in the address confidentiality program or protected person, photographs of the home or vehicle of a participant in the address confidential. So like say their vehicle, like Bob Marshall, you know it's Bob Marshall's vehicle because it's plastered with signs that say Bob Marshall for house on it, right? And he's driving around with it. So you're telling me we can't take pictures of that anymore? So, folks, they just keep adding to this list where they create like special people have special privileges. And I think that's ultimately my biggest issue with this bill is like, there's certain people where if you work for the government, folks, if you're a politician, then you have special privileges. But us, the regular people out here, it doesn't apply to us, right? It doesn't apply to us. People can post our addresses and our phone numbers. That's not against the law. But if they're a politician, if they're part of these protected people, then all of a sudden they have special nobody they have different it's just some pigs are equal, some animals are more equal than others, right? From
Abs-
Animal Farm there.
Absolutely. It's
So
all a version of communism.
yeah, so I don't like this. If it doesn't apply to the rest of the population of Colorado, why should it apply for these people? And this idea of like, I get it. People are upset at the politicians. People are, and there are stupid people out there. Don't get me wrong. I don't like what I'm seeing all the time, but I don't know. I have problems with it. Love to see what people think in the chat here. But yeah, bad stuff overall, I would say, folks. Check it out if you're interested. I'll share the link here in the chat. Any other thoughts on this one, Michael, before we move on?
I think I'm good for now.
And this one is going to be heard tomorrow, this Monday, April 27th, in the House, State, and Civic Military and Veterans Affairs Committee at 1:30 p.m. So even if you don't want to testify, folks, you can click in there. You can listen. Maybe you want to hear the debate. Maybe you want to testify. Maybe you want to talk. Maybe you want to discuss this. That's our rights as individuals here. So there you go, folks. And let's move on to Monday in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and we're going to move relatively quickly through these ones here. But this is thanks for everybody joining us tonight. Please like, share, subscribe. We're going through some of the most important bills in our state legislature this year. So the Senate Judiciary Committee, Monday, April 27th at 1:30 p.m. in the old Supreme Court. I just want to there's a lot of bills in this one, folks. My goodness. But I thought this was interesting because I thought there was some free speech issues here, and I'm sure, I don't know all the details. So listening to this committee will definitely give me a lot more information. But generally speaking, I don't like this idea. It says this bill establishes that the practice of lead generation and marketing for legal services is a deceptive trade practice. So lead generation legal marketing is defined in the bill as a form of marketing in which a lawyer, law firm, or legal paraprofessional pays money or their compensation to a third party to receive information about a potential client or case, including the client's contact information or information about the potential client's legal issue or case. So don't get me wrong, nobody likes lawyers, nobody likes this idea, I think, generally speaking. But say you're an individual looking for legal representation, and say there's a service out there that's trying to connect people who are providing that service to people who are consumers who want that service. This bill gets in the way of that. And maybe there's some nuance here I'm not don't know about, but ultimately, I think that prohibiting an attorney, law firm, or legal paraprofessional from paying money or other compensation to any person engaged in lead generation legal marketing. So it's like, hey, maybe I'm paying a company out there to get me information about people where I can help them. I can reach out to them, offer my services, and help them find a lawyer. This bill makes it harder. So how are lawyers going to be able to find clients, and how are clients going to be able to find lawyers except just Googling them online? So that's my general thought with this bill. It'd be very interesting if anybody out there has more information. Please let me know. I'm going to try and listen to some of the committee hearing at least. But nonetheless, it's just this idea of the government getting involved in the market and preventing people who are producers or people who are able to provide a good or service from being able to get themselves in front of customers. That's ultimately what it comes down to me. What do you think there, Michael?
I think this bill's weird because they're saying that lead generation, when I did a deeper dive into this bill, it's specifically targeting lead generation from third parties, so you can't pay a service to do lead generation. But if that was something that was done in-house, that would now be considered more of a traditional type of lead generation. Therefore, it's okay. which doesn't necessarily make the most sense to me because why couldn't somebody pay for it, especially if it might be cheaper for you to do something that you may not be as qualified to do? Uh, so I don't see the purpose of something like this, especially if an attorney can generate more leads for their practice at a cheaper rate by just paying another service to do that, then they should be able to do that. The bill's kind of I still don't understand this bill and why it even exists. I think it's kind of a waste of time for everybody. But if we want to waste as far as I see it, if we want to waste the time of the legislature during the last 19 days, I say by all means go for it because there's too many bills that we need to stop. And if we can waste the legislature's time with stuff like this, absolutely go for it.
You know, and I get it. Like there, reading the bill here. There's some interesting stuff here that's saying that lead generation legal marketing misleads attorneys or law firms that purchase the consumer information from the lead generation legal marketing organization because the consumer information is often sold to multiple firms. And it's like, well, that's a risk they take. Don't really feel bad about that. But they say lead generation legal marketing firms typically use bait and switch tactics, look like advertising, impersonation, fraud, and other deceptive advertising practices. Well, aren't those already illegal? Aren't those already a problem to target injured or vulnerable consumers who need a legal representation? And I mean, well, say there's a company out there that collects this data and they say, hey, listen, I'm going to, there's this law firm out there. They're the best in the state for dealing with these kind of issues. Let's send their information over to them. And it's like, well, you can't do that anymore. So, I get it I'm sure during the committee hearing, we'll hear about the problems and why this bill's necessary. But just wanted to bring it to people's attention because I thought it was interesting. And it's one of those things you probably haven't heard of before. We like to talk about stuff maybe that wasn't in the news. So this is its first committee hearing coming up here on Monday, April 27th. So interesting stuff. Any other thoughts on this one, Michael?
Not at the time, but
Perfect, perfect. So, we'll bring up this one because now this bill did pass out of the House. It's one of the more controversial bills this year. It is now over in the Senate Judiciary, so I'm sure there's going to be some fireworks. There's going to be a lot of conversations about this one. This bill had all these amendments lost. The Republicans were fighting this one tooth and nail in the state House, um, and unfortunately now it's over in the Senate. But basically, this is the civil actions for conversion therapy survivors. My goodness. Basically, eliminating the statute of limitations. So, if you were a kid who maybe was told that they are not born in the wrong body, that they are born in the correct body, that, and then it's 40 years later, you want to sue the person who told you that, then there you go. That's what this bill allows you to do. It allows you to seek legal remedy against people who told you that maybe you aren't a different gender or a different whatever, gender identity, whatever you want to call it. So basically, more lawsuits trying to create this protected class of people based on their sexual orientation or gender identity to prevent mental health professionals from offering them any other type of treatment other than affirming what they're going through, affirming the potentially a delusion. So there you go, folks. Colorado doubling down. This bill, of course, was heard for the first time in the House right after the week of the big Supreme Court decision. Was it Childs, I want to say, or somewhere around there? Michael, you might remember better than me, but the big
mm-hmm.
decision at the Supreme Court where they struck down Colorado's conversion therapy ban because Colorado was saying, oh, if you're a licensed mental health professional, you can't tell a kid that they're born in the correct body. You can't tell a kid that maybe they're not of a different sexual orientation. That's illegal for you to talk to them. It's against, and then the Supreme Court said, yeah, that's a First Amendment violation, obviously. So this bill was already in the works. Don't get me wrong. You'll see headlines out there saying this is in response to that or whatever. It wasn't. It was already They're already working on it. But basically saying, okay, it's already been conversion therapy has already been struck down as a ban on conversion therapy has already been struck down as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. But Colorado wants to double down anyway and say, well, yeah, let's let these people sue people for the rest of time. So shame on Kyle Mullica, Lisa Cutter, Karen McCormick, Alex Valdez, and everybody else who voted for this crazy controversial bill. So you can see it there in the House third reading, 40 to 23. So 40 the Democrats. There's 22 Democrats in the House, so I'm guessing. Let's see if it was Bob Marshall. He's usually the one. Yep, Bob Marshall voted against it. The only Democrat to vote against this bill. All the 22 Republicans voted against it, and two excused. And then you had 40 of the Democrats vote for it. So there you go, folks, with two excused. So any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I think it's quite shocking how desperate the Colorado General Assembly is willing to put themselves in the crosshairs in an embarrassing fashion from Senate Bill 97 to 1322. Uh, we are seeing the Colorado legislature come out and say we want to be the most radical state in the entire country. Uh, this isn't live and let live. This is live as I live, where I will come after you with everything I have. And I'm very, very concerned about how if we don't stop this nonsense, we're going to go in a direction that's not necessarily unrecoverable, but it's going to have devastating consequences for and lasting impact for generations. Uh, Look at how much money we've already given to um, all these different health agencies through 1309, etc., that allow for kids to have gender reassignment surgery. And now we're going to turn around and tell somebody that if they were told that they shouldn't get gender reassignment surgery, that they should actually be punished, and tell somebody that they can do it decades later. And it's incredibly ironic because Ken DeGraff just recently ran a bill that was going to allow individuals who did those types of gender reassignment surgeries to allow victims who realized that they were actually born in the correct body to take legal action. And that bill was actually struck down. Yet meanwhile, about 3 or 4 weeks later, I believe, they went ahead and introduced 1322. So they believe gender conversion therapy is wrong as long as it's not the type of gender conversion therapy that they agree with. So incredibly hypocritical by the state. And yeah, this I fully expect this one, if it does pass, to be challenged in the Supreme Court someday and absolutely get struck down.
Yeah, and isn't telling a kid they're born in the wrong body, isn't that conversion therapy? Like you're converting them over into another gender identity. But look at this, folks, or a person who negligently hired or supervised the professional. So these are parents potentially. Maybe a parent was like, hey, let's have this kid see this therapist because of his gender identity issues. And now all of a sudden that kid becomes an activist 10 years later down the road and decides to sue mom and dad for getting you to get this guy to talk to the kid. And that's all he's doing is talking to him. You know, if you don't know what conversion therapy is, it's really just having a conversation. It could be defined as at least just having a conversation ultimately. So it's insanity, craziness. Of course, Colorado moving down the path to destruction there, just bad news, folks. So bad stuff that's being heard Monday. Let's move on to the Senate Transportation and Energy Committee here. And yeah, we're going to move a little bit faster through these, folks, just because it's getting later. But the Senate Transportation and Energy Committee, Monday, April 27th, 1:30 p.m., the Front Range Passenger Rail District. So you've probably seen our Governor Jared Polis talk about Coco the train on social media or on the news. And the idea is they want to create this new district. And so district, of course, is a government, basically, right? This government where they're going to get more money and they're going to set up this whole framework in order to build this front range passenger rail system. It is ridiculously irresponsible. It is the government can't even keep the roads paved. The government can't even keep our roads in good condition. And we think they're going to build a good train system. We know it's not going to work. We know it's going to be a disaster over time. But this bill is really one of those first steps towards doing this. And you're going to see all these big government Democrats celebrating how wonderful it's going to be that we're going to have, this new district that's going to get its own taxing authority based on voter approval, thanks to Tabor, take out government debt, all the ridiculousness here with this. It's something I've been talking about for years. Natalie Benton and I talked about this when it first really went through, but this is the next step in it. So just wanted to bring it up to people because they're really pushing this idea hard, of course, that they're going to build this massive Front Range Trail government, basically. I mean, RTD is already one of the biggest governments in the state of Colorado, believe it or not. And now here comes another one to create another government structure, the last thing Colorado needs. Any thoughts, Michael?
No, we talked about this one when it was in the House and or when it's in the Senate. Now it's advanced to the House. I'm very concerned about what's going to happen with this if it does advance, because they're just trying to nickel and dime and find every single way to charge us more way excuse me, they're trying to find more ways to charge us money basically, and we already, as we I mentioned before, we're in an affordability crisis in Colorado. We cannot afford to live as we do, and inflation keeps going up, and a lot of the reasons inflation is going up is because of government forces on the free market economy. So, very very concerned about what's going to happen if this does pass. And not only will this make it less affordable for us to live, but they're also going to tell us how we can live and tell us how we are going to um, how we can and can't use our roads. They're going to limit the ability for us to expand our roads. You see this whole 15-minute city agenda that's been pushed through, a transportation agenda 2035, and they're going to keep on trying to push those goals up more and more and more and more. Look what they did with clean coal, with clean energy demands through the PUC. They are advancing those when it's harder to pay our energy bill. If you pay an energy bill in Colorado, you've seen what's happened over the last 5 years. Energy prices have absolutely skyrocketed. So they see that as a good thing, and they're going to just try to encroach with this urbanist agenda, because they don't like cars, they don't like vehicles. They want to force us all on trains. They want to force us on government transportation, and it's absolutely disgusting. If we want to live in a free society, we should be able to have the transportation options that we choose for ourselves, and that means being able to purchase cars, go where we want to, be Coloradans, enjoy our state. But if we're all shoved on trains, we're not going to be able to do that. We're all going to be packed in like sardines, and in these trains with who knows who's on those trains. I mean, we've all seen the Do Better Denver videos of what it's like to ride on the train, what it's like to ride on the bus these days. It's not safe. So very very concerned for what could happen if stuff like this passes. But absolutely, if you can get down there and testify against this bill, absolutely do it.
And you bring up a good point too, Michael. This is something that's going to be kind of a long-term battle. Like this whole agenda, like you said, it's decades in the making, and they're planning on instituting this over time. So even if this is just a topic maybe you're interested in, you can even just listen to the committee, go listen to the live stream and pay attention. And you're going to become one of the most have the best expertise on this. Testify for sure. Don't get me wrong. Not trying to tell people not to do that. But at the same time, you might have some of the best expertise in the state just by listening to committee hearings. I mean, ultimately, these are educational, folks. I sat through so many hours listening about gambling bills and these taxes on breweries and stuff. And all of a sudden, you're like, wow, you know more than 90% of the people in Colorado. So, nonetheless, just want to bring this one up quickly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, one last thing that I wanted to point out that I forgot to mention with that bill is we've been promised a train to Fort Collins for the last 20 years, and we haven't seen anything move outside the metro area. So when the hell and now they're suddenly saying that Cocoa is going to be ready in about 3 years all the way to Longmont. Does anybody actually believe that number? Does anybody actually think that's a realistic number? After, if it's been 20 years, why should that suddenly be ready in 3 years to at least Longmont? We should have seen that portion of that rail system be completed 15 years ago. If that's the case, that's giving them that would give them 5 years to complete that rail line, but we haven't seen anything yet. So who knows when we're actually going to see this? I think this is going to turn us into another California. And if you haven't been paying attention to what's going on with the California rail system, look out, because that is a massive boondoggle, and they're not seeing any results of anything that they've been taxed for. And they've been working on rail for about as long as Colorado has. So very very concerning stuff with what's going on with RTD.
Yeah, it's going to cost more. It's going to deliver less, of course, Just real briefly, folks in the same committee, Senate Bill 171, disposal of pre-production plastic materials. Of course, these little do-gooders think they're Captain Planet over here, requiring producers to have new requirements and make it harder for them to do business here in Colorado. So another bill, Senate Bill 16, and was enacted in 2026, prohibits a person from disposing of a pre-production plastic materials at a location that does not have federal interim status. A federal permit granted pursuant to the Federal Solid Waste Disposal Act or the state permit for the treatment, storage, or disposal of hazardous waste at the hazardous waste site. This bill removes this prohibition and instead prohibits the disposal of pre-production plastic materials at a location that is not a solid waste disposal site and faculty with a certificate of designation. So I don't really have much to say about this one. I just wanted to bring it up because it's like we see this where, like, They're trying to force all these companies to pay for recycling, pay for all these other things, just increasing costs. But ultimately, what is interesting here is that, this bill the governor signed back in March, and they're like, well, let's see, this bill's going to repeal that and instead change it. So it's just like it just shows you sometimes. And part of the reason I wanted to share this with you is it shows you the fact that like this bill already got passed and signed by Jared Polis, and then they're like, no, well, actually, let's change it, and let's. So they move so fast with 600 something bills every year. This year, how are they? They're of course they're making mistakes left and right. So this is just one of the few bills that passed this year, and they're already saying, well, we need to make a total change to it. So it's like it just goes, how many other bills have they passed where they're like, well, that was actually a mistake? At least they realized it ahead of time, I guess. But nonetheless, there you go. Any
And
thoughts, Michael?
Brandon, one thing to point out with Senate Bill 16, Senate Bill 16 was one of the first bills introduced. They had time to stakeholder, they had time to figure out what was going to be a good bill. And for them to put that up towards the top of the priority list, that tells you how much of a mistake that they had when they had the opportunity to stakeholder. So what's going on with these bills? Like we're all the way down at 171. We know that there's bills after that. They didn't have the time to properly stakeholder. They just realized they screwed up and they're just coming up with a quick fix. That might not necessarily be the right thing to do either. This might lead to a bunch of issues that are going to make it even worse for Colorado to um, deal with the consequences of Senate Bill 171 if it passes. Because I definitely don't like this bill. I think both of them are horrible.
There you go. Well said, sir. Yeah, our state government mistake after mistake here. So also Tuesday, folks, we got a few more things to talk about on Tuesday. We're going to move a little quicker here. Sorry, out there, Snail, Mushroom Snail, and everybody else. I know we're taking some time here, but there's interesting stuff. And I say that jokingly. I know you're joking out there, but House Transportation, Housing and Local Government Committee, Tuesday, April 28th, LSBA. So LSB is the Legislative Service Building just south of the state capitol. But just wanted to bring up a couple of these here for you. And let's see, House Committee Concurrent Resolution 261003. Now, this one, folks, is pretty cool. And this is, I would probably say, is a messaging, right? They know that the Republicans behind this, and they're doing their best. Lori Garcia Sander, Byron Pelton, Barb Kirkmeyer, they usually do a pretty good job. Not always, but pretty good job. But basically, what their little plan here is pretty cool. I love this. This is a great idea. They should get kudos for this and thank them for doing it. So basically, if this passes, the House and the Senate, because these resolutions don't need the governor, just the House and the Senate, at the election held on November 3rd, 2026, the Secretary of State shall submit to the registered electors of the state the ballot title set forth in Section 2 here. So this would add to the Colorado State Constitution and add Section 3.7 to Article 10, which is Tabor. The follows: the county authority to allow a property tax exemption, residential real property owner occupiers who own property outright. So for property tax years commencing on or after January 1st, 2027, residential real property as defined by law, that as of the assessment date is owner occupied and is used as the primary residence of the owner occupier is exempt from property tax imposed by a county, the revenue from which would otherwise be retained by the county. So if you have a single family home and it's paid off, you could get exemption from property taxes. How great would that be, folks? I've seen so many people complain online about property taxes recently, which is great, fine. We all hate taxes generally speaking, but here's an actual plan that basically would allow counties to exempt from just county property tax a single family home that is the primary residence of the owner occupier and is owned outright without a mortgage. It's a simplification there in the fiscal note. This was interesting here. Based on the analysis of U.S. Census Bureau data, there were about 507,000 households in Colorado that owned their homes free and clear without mortgages in 2024, about 20% of all households in the state. My goodness, folks, isn't that crazy? Only 20% of the households in Colorado, people actually own them outright without mortgages. I guess it's not that surprising, right? Property in Colorado is very expensive. There's been so many people who've moved here. We have half plus 50, more than 50% of the population are recent arrivals, I would say, at least weren't born here. So, of course, only 20% of the households in the state, though, people are actually homes owned free and clear without mortgages. Of these, about 85% live in single family homes, including attached and detached units. On average, single-family households without a mortgage have higher property values than those with mortgages. The average for a single-family household without a mortgage was an estimated $747,000, higher than those with a mortgage at $702,000. So very interesting sometimes here, folks, where you can jump into the fiscal note and read what these analysts at the state capitol are computing. So yeah, I mean, this idea basically is going to say, hey, listen, if approved by voters, you can get lower property taxes. So this is a good election year messaging bill. I'm sure the Democrats aren't going to let it go anywhere, but just this generally idea of here's an option if you own your home outright, maybe you shouldn't have to pay property taxes. I don't know. Interesting idea. What do you think, Michael?
I like it. I really like this, especially for seniors who still live at their home, especially in rural communities. Rural communities, or maybe out in farms, uh, especially farms, because of how much acreage they might actually own and what that bill might end up being. And when you're a senior citizen, you're not able to do what you used to do when you were younger, and you're not able to resulting in a lot, not necessarily loss of income, but more of a lack of income. So I could see this as being crucial for a lot of family farms. I could see this for elderly individuals. This might be the difference between them having to sell their family farm that they've had for decades and decades, or you know, decades, sometimes 150 years in their family, to yeah, I could see them being able to save those family farms. So I could definitely see this as being something that's going to be very helpful, especially in rural communities for those people. I mean, and you look at this bill sponsors, you've got Pelton on there, you've got Garcia Sander, who's from north, where there's a lot of there's a lot of agriculture, just like Senator Kirkmeyer. So uh, I think this is a fantastic bill. Like you're saying, this is more of a messaging bill. It's not going to pass, but I'd love to support this if somebody had the opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's a good one to talk about. It's a good conversation to have. And, Barb Kirkmeyer is running for governor, of course. Byron Pelton and Lori Garcia Sander, I'm sure, have political aspirations. So this is a great bill to say, hey, listen, we're fighting to lower your property taxes, you Colorado homeowners. So that's good. Good stuff. Would love to see people show up in support of this one. Be very interesting to listen to the committee hearing, get more details on it. Mike Dickerson in the chat was asking about the homestead exemption. It doesn't seem like it expands that at all. Here, I'll share the link in the chat so people can jump into it and look at it if they like. But yeah, interesting stuff there, folks. So that is being heard on Tuesday in the House Transportation Committee. Also in the House Transportation Committee is this bad bill, one of the ones we highlighted at the very beginning, modernizing a regional transportation district. So we see this expansion of government with this new train district. This bill is going to change RTD a lot. Look how long this is, and all the italics are added to the bill summary through amendments. The strike throughs are removed from there for amendments. So there's so many different things in here. But of course, I think the biggest concern with this bill is that it removes the ability of citizens to elect the board members, the current number of board members we have now. Instead, here it is right here. So Section 9 changes the composition of the RTD board. Current law provides for 15 board members, all of whom are elected. Good. It's democracy, right? We elect these people to represent us in one of the largest governments in the state. The bill provides that beginning January 1st, 2029, the current members' terms will expire and the terms of 9 new members will begin. So they're bringing it down from 15 to 9, with 5 of those members being elected and 4 being appointed by the governor. So instead of the people of Colorado who are paying taxes to RTD, being able to elect all 15 board members, we're going to be only able to elect 5 of them. Instead, the governor picks the other 4. So you can see what they're doing here, folks. They're trying to basically create this more efficient system of government, which we don't want. Government is dangerous. We want it to be a slow process in which we're making sure we're making right decisions, especially with a large entity like this. But we're reducing the number of decision makers. We're reducing the ability of citizens, of taxpayers to have input. And ultimately, yeah, I mean, basically creating a system in which it's easier for them to force through their agenda. As you pointed out earlier, Michael, this whole high density mass transit corridors, that's their vision for Colorado. So that's what it is. There's a lot in this bill, folks. There's a lot else in it, but I really wanted to highlight Section 9, just the idea of this anti-democracy bill, where they're saying, nope, it's going to be up to the governor to appoint them. It's not going to be the people voting on them, which is taxation without representation and ultimately a bad idea. What do you think, Michael? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. They're trying to create a bigger bureaucracy. They're trying to, as you said, they're trying to strip the will of the people away from the board. And if this is one of the, and what's most concerning is this is one of the biggest governments in the entire state. So for the state government to come in and say that we want less representation of the people within RTD should be a huge red flag to every single Coloradan, because if they're going to do because they're going to do this here and then they're going to force it on everybody else, because we've seen other bills this legislative session where they're trying to expand um, transportation districts. They're trying to expand the types of districts within those transportation districts as well. And then they're trying to force a lot of they're trying to force a lot of mandates from the state legislature on everybody, even if it's something that's not going to be beneficial or even makes logical sense to that community, because Colorado is an extremely diverse state. We've got the metro districts, and even our bigger metro districts are different from each other. Denver Boulder area, even Denver and Boulder aren't even the same metro district really, but they get pulled together. Colorado Springs is different than every single one of those other two metro districts, and just like Fort Collins, then you've got the Eastern Plains. That's a completely different animal, just like the Western Slope. So we've got a very diverse state. So for them to be shoving this one size fits all agenda down our throats, it's going to backfire on us. And we're going to see, just like we saw with the plastic bill, we're going to see more and more legislation to fix what's going to go wrong with this legislation that's before us today.
Right, and it just removes representation. Instead of 15, you got five. So it's definitely moving us in the wrong direction. Less citizen input in what's happening, especially with the largest entities in Colorado. So agree with you there, Michael. 100% bad bill. Another one that's interesting, I just wanted to bring it up here because my friend Corey Gaines over at Colorado Accountability Project has been covering this one a little bit. So definitely check out. I'll share in the chat what he said about it here. But there's this issue right now about how Colorado is basically into the point where their landfills are going to charge you fees now because of all these ridiculous regulations in terms of what the state government is basically going to say. So there's some concerns with this bill, and I'm going to share Corey Gaines' article. Check it out, Colorado Accountability Project. Definitely subscribe to his Substack. I just wanted to bring this up. This bill has been so heavily amended here, folks. It's hard to keep track of all the changes they've made to it. But nonetheless, this bill deals with what they're doing with landfills and this idea that these methane emissions are either too much or causing certain issues. So basically, you can see this bill is all the strike throughs here of what they changed. So really, all it comes down to now is it allows the Department of Public Health and the Environment to expend money from the Community Impact Cash Fund to provide grants for municipal solid waste landfill methane emission reduction projects. It requires the Environmental Justice Advisory Board to prioritize a grant request from a local government that owns or operates a municipal solid waste landfill over a grant request from a private entity that owns or operates a municipal solid waste landfill. So there you go, picking winners and losers, picking the government over the people. Requires an entity that receives money from the department to use the money as supplemental funding only, and amends the definition of disproportionately impacted community. So the idea is, these landfills, of course, and all these costs and these ridiculous climate mandates are just driving costs up and making it harder for people to even dispose of their trash in Colorado. So they try to do something about it. This changed a bunch, and there's where it's at right now. So people can dig into it if they're interested. Any thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I kind of I wish that we didn't see Chris Richardson on here. This is probably one of my most disappointing bills I've seen him on. Uh, yeah, I mean, we just need to. I don't see why we need to make trash more expensive, but at the end of the day, there's a climate agenda that's happening, and they want to make everything more and more expensive in the States. So, I'm not the biggest. Yeah, hate seeing how what's going. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this bill either. So, um, yeah, I don't really have much more to say.
All right, perfect. Well, let's move on, folks, because we do have more to talk about here. And moving over to we're still on Tuesday, folks. There's a lot going on this week in the Senate Finance Committee. Two interesting bills having to do with marijuana, cannabis. So very interesting stuff here. Of course, we haven't seen a lot of marijuana type legislation this year. We did see some attempts last year, but just want to bring these to people's attention here. Let's start with Senate Bill 164, actually, the regulation of lawful THC beverages, basically tetrahydrocannabinol beverages. So right now, there is an amount you can actually sell at like you could sell that has a certain amount of THC in it, which is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana, and they want to increase that. So this bill regulates the manufacture, distribution, sale, and consumption of lawful THC beverages. A lawful THC beverage is defined as a non-alcoholic beverage product that is infused with THC derived from a legal source of hemp that contains no more than 10 milligrams of total THC per serving. The bill permits a person that is registered with the Department of Public Health and Environment as hemp products manufacturer to manufacture lawful THC beverages. So this one was in the headlines here recently, folks. You may have seen this, but basically they're going to allow more THC beverages to be sold outside of just dispensaries, which is interesting here. So a licensee, you can actually get licensed. You could sell these THC beverages to an individual. Well, they can't sell it to an individual under 21. I'm sorry. They can't sell it to an intoxicated individual. That's fine. They can't allow it to be removed from the premises. It's like a bar, basically, right? They cannot permit the use of marijuana or marijuana products, so only this drink, and they can't mix it with alcohol. Other than that, they're going to let people basically sell this at local facilities, like local bars. So maybe you have like a coffee shop type of thing, right? Like in Amsterdam, where people are able to drink their THC beverages, have coffee, have other things. And so, I think this is a step in the right direction. We're loosening some of these restrictions that have maybe been too hard. But I just thought it was interesting. Of course, there's too much regulation, generally speaking, around alcohol, around marijuana, around tobacco, even in Colorado. My goodness! But just want to bring this to people's attention because it's being heard this week, and I know it was making some headlines. So interesting stuff. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, they think it's going to be bringing a big cash cow of over $2 million a year in state taxes based on the new sales. So. There you go. Establishing the framework for the manufacture, distribution, sale, and consumption of lawful THC beverages, non-alcoholic beverages infused with THC containing no more than 10 milligrams per serving. So there you go. They're basically some level of expansion, it seems. What do you think, Michael?
One thing I was kind of curious about is I think this is going to be good for businesses, especially restaurants. Restaurants have been absolutely hammered, especially in the Denver metro area. So this will be a good thing for places like Denver restaurants because they will finally be able to sell somebody a drink, and it's not like a THC beverage isn't going to be something that's going to be kind of noxious and it's going to be noticeable. Like one of the big things people were concerned about with marijuana legalization was the smell. Like walk down the street and you can smell this skunky like presence and in your community. This isn't that. This is something that's just going to be in a drink, just like anything else on your table. The big thing is going to be making sure that, just like with alcohol, with parents, if you got your kids there, make sure that, you're being responsible with your drink, not letting kids drink it, for example. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think this is going to be something that's going to be beneficial for the economy.
Yeah, and from a libertarian perspective, I think this is a good thing for sure. Very interesting here about how there's 10,538 liquor licensees that would potentially be eligible for this permit, liquor wholesalers. So it'd be very interesting to see if grocery and convenience stores would be able to sell them just like they do alcohol. That could be kind of interesting to see that happen because we'll see though. I don't know that this is going to make it because it is such an expansion because right now you have to go to a very highly regulated marijuana facility, a dispensary, right, to buy marijuana. So to say that maybe other people can start selling some marijuana products, I think it's a step in the right direction. We're going there anyway, but yeah, I'd be very curious to see if this one even makes it through the legislature. This might be too extreme for the Democrats even. So very interesting stuff here, folks. I'll share the link in the chat. People can check it out. And yeah, interesting bill, that's for sure, being heard this Tuesday in the Senate Finance Committee. So if you're interested in this topic, folks, check it out. Moving on to 161, a very similar bill, modernize the regulation of cannabis-related products. My goodness, there's a lot to this one here. Let's just jump in the fiscal note. This one is a little bit more complicated, I would say. Oh, it looks like they haven't finished the fiscal note here. Oh, wait, look at this. They're going to postpone it indefinitely. So here's interesting stuff. So they didn't even get the fiscal note done. You recently informed our office of your intention to ask the Senate Finance Committee to postpone indefinitely your bill. So at least they let the Legislative Council staff know they didn't have to waste their times on this bill, waste their time on this bill. So they stopped work on it. So there you go. So this bill is not going anywhere. And it was a big change. I think, the marijuana stuff is been very interesting to watch over the last several years. This was going to shuffle around the taxes, basically, move it around, change some different things there, here and there. But let's, since we know that the plan is they're going to stop this, they're going to postpone this bill indefinitely, which effectively just gets it done for the year. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere. So, any other thoughts on this one, Michael?
I'm kind of curious how they were going with this being an excise tax. The current law, as the top beginning of the bill stated, was all marijuana sales are hit with a 15% excise tax. So, and that I remember that had to be approved because of Tabor. That excise tax had to be approved on the during a ballot, and I believe it was either April or November when we voted on that. I'm trying. It's been a while since I um, voted on that piece of legislation. Uh, but I remember voting on that excise tax, and at the time that was the most expensive. That was the highest uh, tax rate in the history of Colorado, and we voted on that and said yes, we'll take that money for education. Uh, Kind of curious where the education dollars went because, as you know, the Democrats don't necessarily do the best with their budget, especially when their certain dollars are earmarked for it to go to those departments. That being said, I'm very curious how this would have been handled. I didn't see anything indicating that this would have to go to this would have to be approved by the voters via ballot uh, in this. So I'm kind of curious if it was going to have to be if this was going to affect Tabor or not. I could see it affecting Tabor if this would have passed. So I'm curious what they plan to do because as we both saw, they plan to postpone this one indefinitely, aka kill the bill. So what's going to happen come 2027 legislative session? Because I imagine that they would either reintroduce this one right at the end of at the end of legislative session with the appropriate changes, or they will introduce something in 2027. So I'm kind of curious what's going to happen with this bill and what the future of this bill holds.
Yeah, in last year, folks, we tried to see them have a potency cap. Thankfully, that didn't make it very far. But basically, this bill is going to change how they tax. This bill would have changed how they tax marijuana based on its potency, was one of the things there. So, yeah, like you said, Michael, if this is going to increase taxes, there's some constitutional questions. If it increases taxes, it should be a Tabor, so it should go to the vote of the people. If it's changing what Amendment 64, the ballot measure that it was approved by the people of Colorado, if it changes how that's operating, there's some questions there if they can do that because that's an amendment to the state constitution. So, yeah, it looks like there's just too many issues with this bill that they ended up stopping it. So, good news, I'd say. There you go. We probably won't, they'll probably just stop the bill, postpone it definitely immediately. So interesting stuff there, folks. But let's move on to Wednesday. We'll move quickly through these. The Colorado Survivor Justice Act, Senate Bill 124. And this bill, here's another example, folks, of a bill that got totally gutted. So they look at this. They struck all of this out of the bill and just changed it. So check out here, because that's to do with guns. That's why I want to bring this up. Current law requires that the automated protection order notification system include information about whether a restrained person completed and submitted a firearm purchase or transfer application that indicated the restrained person was ineligible to possess a firearm pursuant to state or federal law. The bill repeals this provision. Current law requires the Colorado Bureau of Investigation to make the information in the notification system available to the Division of Criminal Justice for the purpose of providing the information to a protected person. The bill requires the Colorado Integrated Justice System Information System Program also make the information available to the division. So don't get me wrong, not a lot there really for us to discuss, I would say, but very interesting to see just how this bill was one thing initially and then totally changed. And yeah, they're just going to make certain information available to this other process here. So really a do nothing bill, but I just want to bring it up because it's one of those that has changed so dramatically. Any thoughts there, Michael?
I always get a little wary when it comes to our guns and our privacy and what the government's sharing with other departments. So I I want to do more research on this bill, but I am a little bit concerned about what this means. And a lot of times when it comes to government, they might do something that seems innocuous on the surface, but it's really going to set up a predecessor for to really hammer you, particularly next legislative session. So we'll see what happens, but uh, I got my eyes out on this one and what they could possibly do. I definitely think it would be worth a conversation with catching on, but yeah, I always am very concerned about gun rights and how Democrats want to attack our Second Amendment.
And folks, yes, very true, Michael, 100%. Just wanted to bring this other one up here just because we saw two big bills dealing with lawyers. And as people were pointing out in the chat, trial lawyers have so much power politically in Colorado that it's interesting to see that two big bills this year having to deal with lawyers. I thought it's like, okay, something's going on here. And to have leadership, you have Jarvis on there, but you also have Mabry on there. Very unusual pairing. Ryan Mabry's a lawyer. He's a far left Democrat, DSA type, and there's Jarvis, who's a establishment conservative type. So that for them to pair up on this bill here, I thought was kind of interesting. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I can't pretend to know all the details on this in terms of how the fees and this and that works, but I just thought it was interesting here where this bill prohibits a lawyer or law firm in connection with providing legal services concerning a legal matter arising, asserted, or properly venued in Colorado from providing a portion of that legal fee to, or revenue to a non-lawyer or organization that economically participates in the provision of legal services. So there's like, this bill does a lot. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it just because we are running late, but just wanted to bring it up to people for them to point out. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I always hate it when the government is going to interfere in the free market, and I think this is another version of the government interfering on the free market. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to make it even more it's going to make it even more difficult and more expensive for people to obtain legal services. So always get concerned uh, when the government steps in, especially when it comes to something as crucial as legal services, because there's a lot of times when you have no choice, but you need to have a lawyer because it's incredibly convoluted. It's incredibly complicated to understand the legal system. I'm grateful for Sean Steele and Umbrella Civic and what he's done with that project, but that doesn't mean that even with that type of AI information that you're going to be able to go in and you're going to be able to be a lawyer just because you might have, as a person doing pro se work, who has no experience in the legal system, you're going to get smoked when it comes to um, representing yourself in the court of law. So, legal services are crucial. They're very important. So stuff like this always ends up biting us in the butt when we try to um, manipulate the market through government interventions. So very concerned about what the lasting impact would be from laws like that.
Definitely, definitely. Also on Thursday now, the Senate Local Government and Housing Committee here. Two interesting things. Definitely want to spend a little bit of time on one of them here, and that is the protection or the areas of local preemption. This is Senate Concurrent Resolution 1 from Rod Pelton. And just check this out, folks. If this passed, it would go to the it'd go to the election this year, and it would provide that within the territorial limits and jurisdiction of an enacting local government, a local ordinance code, regulation, or other law enacted by the local government supersedes any conflicting state law in the following areas: permitting of construction, development, or land access, zoning and planning, land use decisions, setting of utilities and infrastructure. So look at all this long list. The idea here, folks, is returning local control to the local communities of Colorado and saying, hey, listen, let's amend the state constitution to say that your local law is the ultimate decider when there's conflicting laws. This would be fantastic. There's no chance at all that this is going to make it because it totally would undo all this housing regulation bills and, of course, all these other plans they have, as you've been pointing out tonight, Michael, about high density housing and mass transit and all these other types of 15-minute city ideas. This centrally planned nightmare that the state government has in store for us. But kudos to Rod Pelton for pushing back. And I really hope to testify on this one, just to make the point known, right? Just to say, hey, listen, we need to return to the sense of local control. We need to let local communities who know what's best for their people in that community, where that democracy is much more relevant in your own community, not somebody down in Denver telling everybody else how we should do things in Colorado. This would be a great thing. So it'd be wonderful to add this to the Section 17, Article 18 of the state constitution. But yeah, it's not going to go anywhere because it undoes so much of what the Democrats have planned. But any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I absolutely love it. Home rule is important. I'd love to see this one pass, but as you said, it's going to be more of a messaging bill, but it's a fantastic message and it's something that we should rally around and let people know that this is the type of stuff that people are still supporting down at the legislature. So not all hope is lost, even if we can might be disappointed by Republicans from time to time. Not all hope is lost, and there are good people fighting down at the state capitol.
Definitely, yes. And we could see potentially that kind of thing pass if with a Republican majority, folks. I mean, that's the difference there. And that's why it's important to get involved in the elections this year. Just bring up this one briefly House Bill 1308, lot splitting approval by subject jurisdictions. This is the opposite example here. This bill provides that on or after December 31st, 2027, subject to administrative approval process, a subject jurisdiction, so your local city, shall approve a lot split of an original lot into two new lots if all these following conditions are met. So the idea is they're breaking up they're trying to allow bigger lots, property lots, to be divided into smaller property lots, right? So you can have more packed people packed in to their high density communities. Now, I have no problem, obviously, with people doing what they want with their own property, but the idea here is, folks, it's a centrally planned, top down scheme from our state government trying to force this on counties and cities who don't necessarily want this, right? It's the opposite of what we just talked about in the other bill. This is debated heavily in the state legislature. Ref DeGraff did a phenomenal job. Larry Don Sukla, others debating this one and discussing the bad parts of this bill. So check that out if you haven't seen it. But nonetheless, bad bill being heard this week. Any thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I like you believe in property rights and people should be able to do what they want on their property, but my big concern with this is just the once again, it's the state government superseding home rule and deciding what they think that they know what's best for everyone, and that's absolutely not the case. So, um, yeah, terrible bill. We need to restore local control.
Definitely restore local control. That's where liberty's going to come from. So that's what we got, folks. That's what's going on in committee hearings. My goodness, there's a lot. This is recorded on YouTube. Share it out there to people. Pay attention throughout the week. I'll do my best to tweet throughout the week on Free State Colorado about some of the bills that are going on. As usual, we give you an update. We're just going to fly through these if you're all right, Michael. We'll try and get through them real quick. This is really
Absolutely.
the
Let's
we
go
got the
ahead.
big Bugs Bunny there because these are the biggest bills of the week of the year, excuse me. So we've been tracking these bills all year long. I counted them today. I was like, oh, let's count them: 11 good, 31 bad, 9 passed, and 39 have been stopped. So there's still actively 11 good bills, I would say. But we're just going to give you a quick update, kind of a lightning round, people. We're not going to really go into the bills, but if you want more information, you can definitely look it up. But I'll start here with Senate Bill 70, folks. And this is one that please reach out to the senators, send them an email. They're going to be debating this on the Senate floor this week. Would love to see this restriction on the government's ability to use mass surveillance data to track us all across the state. So this is being heard this week in the state Senate. So please reach out on this one, Senate Bill 70, folks. We'll keep you updated where it's going.
Senate Bill 71, use of surveillance technology by law enforcement by Senator Zamora Wilson. This passed the Senate Committee on Judiciary, and it was laid over. Oh, wait, sorry. This was laid over unamended, and we are waiting on a date for them to vote on the bill. So more to come on this one.
Yep, back to school sales tax holiday good bill. No date as of yet. House Bill 1048.
Senate Bill 22 challenges meeting 2030 emissions reduction goals. This is a good bill that's basically, this bill is going to make it so that way if a PUC, if a public utility is having problems meeting those goals and it's going to make it more expensive, it's going to allow them to delay um, the mandatory kick-in of certain goals and punishments for failing to meet those dates because they are unable to meet those climate agenda goals, resulting in cheaper energy when we are in an energy crisis. So, good bill. We don't have a date as of today.
House Bill 1140, allowing more local government input into state legislation. Good bill. We'll see if it ends up being heard on the House floor this week. It's been on the calendar for some time now. So we expect this one maybe to be debated on second reading. We'll see. Good bill.
I won't try to slack on this one, Mike. House Bill 1250, procedures related to civil asset forfeiture, this week. We are currently, and it was referred to finance, no date as of today.
Another good one, 1246. I thought this one was supposed to be debated this last week. I didn't get to tune into the committee hearing, so I don't know what happened, but there's no date on the calendar. It doesn't say it's been postponed, so I don't know what's going on with this one. But a good bill from Ken DeGraff to provide some freedom around local energy production. Let's just leave it at that.
Senate Bill 108, transparency of legislative groups' money, no date as of today. We are still waiting on a committee date.
Senate Bill 91 excluding newspaper deliverers as employees, which is good. It'd be great to see more people being able to deliver newspapers like in the old days. Supposed to be heard this Tuesday in the Senate Appropriations Committee. We'll see what happens there.
Senate Bill 90, exempt critical infrastructure from right to repair. We talked about this one earlier, to be heard tomorrow in the State House Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee at 1:30 p.m.
Senate Bill 137, measures to reduce administrative burdens. This already passed the Senate unanimously. We're expecting it to pass the House unanimously as well. It's a good bill the Chamber of Commerce has been promoting to create this annual review of regulations, and a good one, of all these department rules. So it's a drop in the bucket in terms of solving Colorado's regulatory issues, but it's a step in the right direction. So we'll see. It's supposed to be here on the House floor this week. Dun, 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 dun.
Bad bills. This was a good bill. We really like this bill going into the legislative session, and then it just got absolutely gutted with amendments. House Bill 1033, expanding the Colorado Cottage Foods Act, formerly the Tamale Act. This is currently waiting in appropriations.
A bad bill, House Bill 155. This was the headline where it said Democrats are going to lower your home insurance prices by creating a new fee and charging everybody more for home insurance. But we're going to require that these insurance companies can't pass that fee along to you. They can't list it out as a line item. Well, we know, of course, it's going to increase their costs. So what are you going to do? Yeah, bad bill. Already passed the Senate committee. Supposed to be heard this week on the Senate floor.
House Bill 1281, homicide criminal offenses. This is going to change the way homicide, etc., is viewed and and sentenced in Colorado if passed. Unfortunately, this will be heard tomorrow on third reading and final passage in the House.
This one's ridiculous, folks. Senate Bill 87. I did a video on this. Create legislative leave protection for General Assembly members. Thankfully, we'd had Brandy Bradley amend this bill to make it optional, but it passed the House, passed the Senate. Now they have to agree on the amendments. So they might agree or they might not to Representative Bradley's amendment there to make this optional. So we'll see. Otherwise, it's going to carve out special privileges for legislators. Bad news. Keep an eye on this one.
House Bill 51, age attestation on computer devices. We've talked about this one today as well. Another terrible bill that will be, that's already passed the Senate and it's on its way to the House, passed the committee, and will be heard on Tuesday in second reading.
Senate Bill 146 to ban single-use plastic forks and knives unless you get. I mean, it's ridiculous because people could still ask for them and they could still give them out. But nonetheless, on the Senate floor sometime this week, we'll see if it goes that far.
Senate Bill 5, rights violations and immigration enforcement remedy. This is a bill to combat ICE. One of the many bills that have been introduced to combat ICE this legislative session. It passed the House committee, the House Judiciary Committee, and referred unamended to appropriations, waiting on a date as of today.
Add one for property tax increases. 116 is supposed to be heard on the Senate floor this week. So if it makes it out of the Senate, then moves over to the House. We have an opportunity to fight it there. Bad bill. Keep you updated.
House Bill 1276, protecting the safety of individuals who are immigrants. And just like previously, I mentioned another terrible bill that's going to attack ICE, to be heard on the House floor in third reading and will result in final passage if it passes and will advance to the House, or excuse me, advance to the Senate.
House Bill 1255. I haven't talked about this one enough, but it's the social media duty to report. We've talked about it before, but I think it deserves more conversation. It's supposed to be on the House floor this week. We'll see how that goes. But basically, turning social media companies into agents of the state and a duty to report any potential illegal activity, to turning over to law enforcement. Crazy stuff.
House Bill 1221. This is a package of three bills that are supposed to radically modify our tax policy in Colorado. They all passed the House Committee on Finance and referred amended to appropriations, and they will be heard on Tuesday in House Appropriations Committee.
Horrible stuff. Ocean steroids for the state of Colorado, 1054. No date as of yet.
House Bill 1043, Transportation Network Discriminatory Practices. We already saw a bill like this pass and enforced, and it was a bill so bad that was passed last year by Jenny Wilford that Uber directly came out and said, if this passes, we're going to leave Colorado, forcing the hand of Governor Polis to veto the bill. And then they brought it back again this year. So slightly modified. Unfortunately, it passed the House Committee on Finance and referred unamended to appropriations. Thankfully, we don't have a date for this bill as of yet, but let's hope this one dies waiting in appropriations.
1005, this is the removing the second vote for union, the forced unionization bill. Supposed to be voted on the Senate floor this week. We'll see what happens. Jared's probably going to still veto this one.
House Bill 1113, modifications to elections, another terrible bill that's going to it will absolutely wreck our election system if it passes. This is already advanced through the House and it has advanced its Senate committee and currently waiting on, uh, is currently waiting to be heard in the Senate on second reading on Tuesday.
House Bill 1084, making it a little bit more difficult for citizen initiated ballot measures. So it passed the Senate, passed the House, but now they have a conference committee to see if they can agree to the amendments. Yeah, you see this rarely, but yeah, the House Conference Committee is going to see if they agree with the Senate amendments. Then the Senate and the House are going to get together on Wednesday to decide if they agree together. So we'll see. Keep an eye on that one.
House Bill 1210 prohibits surveillance, price, and wage setting. This is basically a wage control bill. And you can see, surprisingly, Zoke is on it, but we've got a lot of other progressives, particularly Mabry, Weissman, and Joe Day on this bill. This bill has already passed the House, introduced to the Senate, and it was assigned to a Business, Labor, and Technology uh, committee, which it absolutely passed, and we are currently waiting to hear this in second reading tomorrow morning.
1207, putting new requirements on employers to disclose more, to collect and to give more demographic data, so racial data and everything to the state government, being heard this Tuesday in the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee. It already passed the House.
House Bill 1206, improve funding to support development. We talked about this one. This is another bill that's going to attack Tabor, but it has been defended as being aligned with the spirit of Tabor somehow. This will be heard in the House on second reading on Tuesday.
Senate Bill 42, we talked about that one being heard on Monday on House Finance.
Senate Bill 131, sports betting protections, to be heard second reading on Monday in the Senate.
My Colorado Card pilot program, ridiculous program, bad bill. House Bill 1055 did pass House Education, is sitting in appropriations right now.
Senate Bill 135, we talked about this one earlier, to be heard in the Senate on third reading and final passage. If this advances the Senate, it moves on to the House.
House 1289, modification of certain tax expenditures, basically quote unquote closing loopholes to make increased taxes on businesses here in Colorado. It's going to be discussed in appropriations on Tuesday.
House Bill 1065, transit and housing investment zones. This is another horrible bill, just like we talked about all the other bills that are moving us toward that urbanist 15-minute city agenda. This is another bill that's currently sitting, that passed the House Committee on Finance, and we are waiting on a date as it's been referred to as amended to appropriations.
134, you may have seen ads about this payment card network fees. Definitely need to learn more about it, but it's going to be on the Senate floor sometime this week. It's scheduled. We'll see. They keep delaying this one. They delayed it a lot last week. We'll see what happens with Senate Bill 134 this week.
Senate Bill 43, this is the barrel bill. Record keeping and regulation sale of firearm barrels. Terrible bill by Sullivan and Froelich and Kyle Brown. To be heard in the House, third reading and final passage tomorrow. Let's hope that this one gets delayed another day. They've been delaying this one. If correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but they've been delaying this one time and time and time again. Let's hope this one gets delayed all the way throughout the rest of the legislative schedule. And but yeah, otherwise this will pass. If it does pass, it's going to Governor Polis.
We won't read through all of these, but just let you know some of the bill numbers of what has been passed, what has been sent over to Jared there. So Jared, he's got 1302. That's the allowing the CBI to set their own hours for background checks. Did pass. 1302 passed.
1126 requirements for firearms dealers. This is what RMGO and Catching and Ian and those guys were calling the Gun Store Annihilation Act. This unfortunately passed.
1144, the 3D printing gun ban bill did pass. Thankfully, it was gutted a little bit, but still passed.
Senate Bill 18, legal protections for dignity of minors. This is sections 2 and 3. This is sections 2 and 3 of 13, House Bill 1312 from last year. This did get amended, but unfortunately, the governor signed it after they amended the bill once more.
1011, that's a banning of pet stores basically on some level. There's more nuance to it than that, but that did pass.
House Bill 1253, disconnection from statutory municipality. This is a good bill that was introduced to the Senate and assigned to local government housing. Thankfully, this one was able to get all the way through and pass.
Definitely, House Bill 1001. This was the governor's signature housing bill, forcing high density housing in communities, overriding local approval for it. Bad bill.
Senate Bill 4, this is the Red Flag Expansion Act, basically making it so that way if you are a therapist or work at a school, you have it expands the amount of individuals who can call in a red flag petition on an individual. Unfortunately, this was signed by Governor Polis.
Immunization bill preventing more immunity for big pharma. Senate Bill 32 the governor did sign that one. These are the failed bills, folks. The gone but not forgotten. This leprechaun's been traveling along when I copy and paste the slideshow over every week. We'll just quickly go through these. These are all the bills that have failed this year, just to give you a quick update. Some new ones are added to the list. So House Bill 1114, allowing the minimum lot size for subject jurisdictions. I was surprised to see this one. It did fail in the Senate this week. So that's what we've been tracking. No longer there. So interesting stuff to another big housing bill that failed. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, that's wild. That's weird. Thanks, Brandon. 1203, modification of county commissioner elections. Thankfully, this is another terrible bill that failed that was going to drastically modify how we vote in county commissioner elections.
Yeah, shocked this failed. It originally had the ranked choice voting component, which was the most controversial part that got amended out. But the Senate, it got over to the Senate. They postponed the bill indefinitely. 1071. This one I was shocked. I was very excited. This was going to allow local governments to put more automated vehicle identification systems, some more cameras on interstate highways, and they laid it over till after the session's over, like it's done. House Bill 1071 is lost. Very excited about that.
House Bill 1037, ban government purchase of personal data from third party. This was a good bill we talked about earlier that was going to help protect the Fourth Amendment in Colorado. Unfortunately, it failed this week.
Yep, the bootlicker caucus killed that one. House Bill 1148, protections for youth on social media. This just came back in its other version we talked about, but that was a bad bill.
House Bill 1212, constitutional carry of a handgun by Reps Flanell and Barone, unfortunately failed.
Authorize internet ballots, internet voting for local elections. This bill did fail. House Senate Bill 119.
House Bill 1190, alcohol beverage manufacturer sales. This is going to expand the ability.
Yeah, was that going to be a tax? Oh no, this was the good one. Yeah. 1275. This was the crazy ICE doubling down on sanctuary status for Colorado. This bill was so extreme, even the Democrats stopped this bill from Yara Zokai from passing.
Sorry about that. My mic just decided to die. Um, 1271 alcohol impact and recovery enterprises thankfully failed another workaround on Tabor just to bring more money into the state of Colorado, and it's dead.
Yep, protections against child rape, Brandy Bradley's signature legislation to protect kids and lock up the most heinous criminals in society. Of course, the Democrats didn't like that. The bill was failed.
House Bill 1211, a regulation of broadband services, thankfully failed, which would have resulted in higher broadband service charges for Coloradans.
97, the prostitution bill, of course, did fail.
House Bill 107, modify Colorado Open Records Act, which is CORA, thankfully failed.
Parent penalties for minor using an electric bicycle also failed. House Bill 1125.
House Bill 1012, consumer protections to promote fair market pricing, another is okay crazy bill, thankfully failed.
To reduce cigar taxes did fail. Senate Bill 86.
House Bill 106, opt out of mail ballot packets for elections, unfortunately failed. Another good bill by Senator Zamora Wilson.
1072 to ban red flag gun confiscation orders and put a right to firearm possession from Scott's Law did fail.
Uh, House Bill 1108, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, access federal fingerprint search service, a very controversial bill from Republicans Hartsook and Rich. Thankfully failed and was killed by the sponsors.
1085 offer pregnant person do not abort. Offer pregnant mothers a do not abort form. This bill did fail. 1085.
Senate Bill 28, removal of wind energy from state energy goals. Excuse me. Removal of wind energy from state energy goals. Unfortunately failed.
Second Amendment Protection Act 1021 failed.
1149 Legislative Committee testimony required oath. Thankfully failed. Unfortunately, they'll be back again next year.
Senate Bill 27 Parental Equality and Child Empowerment Act, the Peace Act. Good bill from LZW. Senator Linda Zamora Wilson did fail.
Children Are House for Sale Act unfortunately failed. The good news is we will get to vote on this in November because Rep. Bottoms took the three initiatives from Protect Kids Colorado and made them legislation through as three of his five bills for this legislative session. Um, he did, which was fantastic of him, so we can get these Democrats on record. Unfortunately, this failed, but we still get the opportunity to vote this through come November.
1049 prohibit use of personally identifying feature. I'm not sure on this one. This one I'm a little concerned about. I even saw Rep. Bottoms post on this on social media today or yesterday, whenever it was. We'll see. We'll see where this one goes. It did fail this year, don't get me wrong, but I know some version of this might come back, so we'll see.
Unfortunately, one of Weinberg's good bills regarding legislative session failed. This was going to reduce the legislative session from 120 to 90 days, and it failed in committee.
Yeah, good bill from Weinberg. Another one he had was to limit the number of bills to 5 to 3. That bill did fail. House Bill 1073, good bill. Weinberg's going out with a bang this year.
House Bill 1062 expanded deduction for retirement benefits, a good bill that was unfortunately killed. In fact, Bob Marshall, controversial Democrat Bob Marshall, killed this one, and that it was a good bill that was going to make it cheaper for senior citizens to survive in these economic times.
1036, ridiculous bill from Brianna Titone, excuse me, to put new taxes on vacant residential property. Absolutely horrible bill. Thankfully, this bill did fail. So, hey, that's some good news, folks. Some of these bad bills end up failing. So there's a little bit of a silver lining.
House Bill 1129, gas utilities service, which was going to pull gas utility services from some of these crazy climate goals, unfortunately failed.
Register and drive surplus military vehicles, 1097, did fail. I'll probably come back again in the future.
House Bill 1087, safeguard minors from sex altering interventions, another bottoms bill that emulated the Protect Kids Colorado initiatives, also failed.
Repeal retail delivery fees from Woog and Pelton. B. Good bill. Did fail.
House Bill 1128, limitation on gender transition procedure claims. Fantastic bill by Rep. Ken DeGraff, which is ironic because this failed, yet the Democrats have no problem in pushing and advancing 1322.
1105, discuss adoption with pregnant women. Did fail, unfortunately.
The third bill from Rep. Scott Bottoms that emulated the PKC amendment initiatives failed as well.
1209 from Larry Don Sukla to temporarily decrease property taxes. Good bill, failed.
House Bill 1137, requirements for campaign consultants, a bad bill that was going to change the way consultants operate in Colorado, thankfully failed.
That's all, folks. That's what we got. Thanks for sticking with us. My goodness, lots of information. I appreciate you out there, people who were here the whole time. It was a blast, a lot of fun. So much happening in our state government this week. Folks, have a voice, get involved, show up at committee hearings, reach out to committee members, and reach out to members on the House floor. Reach out. You can email every single representative. It'll take you 10 minutes to do, maybe even less, every single senator, and tell them about the important bills that they're going to be voting on this week and how they should vote. At least try. Have a voice. If they get 100 emails about this age verification bill, they might slow it down. They might say, hey, I don't want to vote on that. Let's just push this off until we get more information. And that might be what it takes to stop some of these bad bills, folks. So we're doing everything we can, folks. We're doing it. We're working hard. You are an important part of the resistance here. If you could see this, if you could hear this, you are the future of freedom here in Colorado. We will be a free state. We're going to have liberty, but it involves us getting involved, participating, and having a voice in the process. At the very least, know what our state government is doing, listen, learn, and go from there. Because you start to learn, you start to see so many opportunities, maybe for more liberty, for more freedom, and understand the bigger picture of what they're trying to do to us. So, Michael, what are your closing thoughts here?
Man, it's been a long session. There's a lot that's gone on, and I just want to remind everybody one last time, remember and hold on to what happened now, and remind your friends and neighbors of this come November, and help them remember why it's so important to vote. Because if we can get some better legislators down at the Gold Dome, uh, we're not going to run into so many of these terrible bills that get shoved down our throats every single year. If we can if we can actually get some momentum and actually put a stop to this craziness, we can actually start turning the swing. We can start turning the tide. There's a lot of good there's a lot of good races out there. House District 61, Senate District 3, Senate District 11, Senate District 15. There are so many different good races out there where there are good candidates that could use your help. So please give them this information and then help a campaign, because now's the time to start thinking about transitioning from the legislative session to the 2026 general election. Because while we still have some primaries, obviously everybody knows about stuff going on with the governor's race, especially on the Republican side, because that's getting crazy. It's important to not get distracted with that type of stuff, because the real issue is what's happening in the swing districts. Find a swing district, give them this information, and help them campaign. Because remember, uh, Senate District 3, Dana Charles is running against the person that's going to replace Nick Hendrickson. And what did Nick Hendrickson do? He introduced one of the most embarrassing pieces of legislation in Senate Bill 97 the state's ever seen. So please help these people. They need your help, and they can absolutely win. And if we get these wins, we can turn the state around, and we can start the crawl back to liberty, and it can start in 2026. Don't worry about the narrative, what's going on nationally. Worry about what's going on in these districts. That's the only thing that matters.
Definitely well said, sir. And I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. We got at least 2 more weeks left. I guess it is probably only 2 more weeks because Next week is going to be May 3rd and then May 10th. It's scheduled right now on May 13th is Sine Die, the last day, the adjournment for the year. So 2 more weeks, folks. Keep joining us. We're going to have a lot of fun and subscribe to Free State Colorado. I'm going to have so many videos coming out, kind of going over what Michael was talking about, opportunities for people to get involved, the swing districts, the closest races that we think we're going to see this year, and some strategy and some ideas about what can we do to make Colorado a free state. So we're in it for the long haul, folks. This battle's not going to be won overnight, but let's do what we can and make the wins we can. So appreciate you, everybody. Take care, folks. Best wishes, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it, everybody.
All right, take care and best wishes, folks. Like, subscribe, and join us again next week.